Yes.
And Sam, okay, welcome to the, we are the October 1st, 2024 Angels Camp City Council meeting. Roll call please, Rose.
Mayor Herndon.
Present.
Vice Mayor Moncada. Present. Councilmember Berlio.
Present.
Councilmember Chimente.
Present.
Councilmember Sharada.
Present.
Staff is present.
Pledge of allegiance.
I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So there's nothing to report out of closed session because we're going to go back into closed session tonight at the end of the meeting. So that's going to move us on to item 6, approval of the agenda as posted or amended. Any reason to amend the agenda as it's been posted?
I have one thing.
See, what you got?
Remove 9C, please. Decide if that's an item that's not needed.
We're pulling completely.
Pulling it for a
completely,
future
yes.
date?
No.
No future date.
Pulling it all together. Okay. Any other changes? Any members of the public have a reason to amend the agenda? Okay, seeing none, I'm looking for a motion to move forward with the agenda as amended.
So moved.
We have a first
I'll say.
and a second. Rose?
Chimente.
Aye.
Berlio.
Aye.
Moncada. Aye. Herndon.
Aye.
Sharada. Aye. Thank you.
Okay, next is item 7. This is public comment. The public may address the council on any item of public interest that's not otherwise on the agenda that is within the jurisdiction of the city. No action may be taken, and matters to be addressed may be referred to city staff or placed on a subsequent meeting agenda. Speakers will be limited to 5 minutes per person. Do we have any public comment? Okay, come on up to the podium. I think the microphone is on.
Well, Sean Connolly. I missed you all. I got sidetracked opening up the ice cream shop and then lost track of when you all had meetings. But hello, how are you? I'm still interested in possible grants down the line that the city is looking into, / if the COVID money ever gets figured out how to be spent to recoup ice cream money. That would be great. Otherwise, we're open and people are happy, and that's a good thing.
Awesome. Thank you, Sean.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. My name is Debbie Pawnee, and this evening I'm representing several different organizations. First, I'd like to talk a little bit about the Outsville Cemetery District. We've been your neighbors since 1927, and we've developed a policy handbook, and we have contact information. And this information seems to get lost in the shuffle of the internet and everything else. So I have pamphlets I want to share, our business cards, and I'd like to share some business cards with City Hall staff.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you. Yeah. Great.
Next, I'd like to share a little bit about what the Angels Camp Business Association is up to and Destination Angels Camp. So this Friday is our farmers market finale. It's an 18-week season that started in June. We're sponsoring our sponsors at 6 o'clock at the event, and we will draw our Inflation Buster raffle drawing. It's a $2,500 first prize. ACPA buys all the gifts. We don't ask for donations. So it's food, cash, and gas. And then the second prize is $500. So if you're looking for tickets, we're still selling. ACPA will have a mixer later in October, and Middleton's has been kind enough to host it. I have flyers and information. And then ACPA and DAC is sponsoring a candidates night. We are not endorsing any particular measure or candidate. This is open for the community to help inform and educate. Red Heart High School is donating the use of the theater. We're paying for the staff to help us assist with lighting and things like that. So that is on Thursday, October 24th. We have 14 candidates. We're featuring the Angels Camp race, the Red Heart Union High School race, and the Mark Twain Union Elementary race. We're also having someone speak on Measure C, which is the abandoned vehicle program, and the elections office will be present to register people, verify registration, and talk about the voting process here in Calaveras County. And then ACPA is sponsoring a downtown wine hub to promote downtown and the local businesses. That's on November 2nd. And then the holiday Christmas parade is in the works. So they moved it this year from the Saturday after Thanksgiving to Saturday, December 7th, and hoping that would encourage more people to participate. It does follow the Murphy's open house, so they're also hoping with entries, it's a little easier where people get a kind of a 2-for-1 on the same weekend. Nighttime activities after the parade has not been as successful as hoped, so they're doing more of a daytime vendor fair, and they'll have Santa Claus during the day versus night, and hopeful that more kids come and visit Santa. So, and then they also would like to invite you to have an entry in the parade. So it's always nice to have our elected representatives out front and in the parade. So I have flyers for all of you on that.
Do you mind sharing what time that candidate's night is?
Candidates night starts at 5:30, and then the forum itself will start about 6. So the executive of each board, both DAC and ACBEC, are out there in the community and talking to respective people about questions. So they'll have a set of questions that they will pose to the candidates versus the audience asking questions.
Oh.
And a lot of it is because of the time constraints with 14 candidates and giving everybody equal time. So each candidate will have an opportunity to introduce themselves, 2 to 3 minutes, why they're running, their background experience, and then depending on how many candidates are at the table that night, they'll have an equal amount of questions being asked of them. And last but not least, and the fun part of what I love to do, is about a year now I've been serving as president of the Angels Camp Museum Foundation. We've been going through a little reorganization, you might say. And so last year, the Angels Camp Business Association has always hosted the Wild West in downtown Angels Camp since 2012. The last time we did the event was 2019. I served as chair in 2018 and 19. And ACBA was the host. Post-COVID, ACBA decided it was too much for them as an organization and had to retire some of the events, and that was one of them. At that time, the Museum Foundation asked if we could pick it up from them, so they handed it off to us. Last year we tried to get it off the ground, but too many of us had too many health issues, so we didn't. This year I'm proud to say we have. The event will be on Saturday, October 12th at the museum grounds from 10 to 3. And basically it's kind of nice to have it at the museum because most of the things we would take downtown now are at the museum. But one of the reasons for moving it from downtown was that it became too costly. It was nearly $5,000 in road closure fees alone.
Wow.
And we would have to fundraise to support that. So going to the museum, it's a much less expense. But a lot of the same activities. So basically taking the event, downscaling it to the museum size, and we'll have historical characters walking around. We have some music groups coming. All of the museum exhibits will be open with docents on hand. Lots of kids activity like blacksmithing and goldsmithing and gold panning and petting zoo and all sorts of stuff. So I have flyers to share with you as well.
Yeah, thank you. Can you tell who's on the Altaville Cemetery?
So the Altaville Cemetery board members
Yes.
are appointed by the Board of Supervisors.
Okay.
So we're not treated as elected, but we still have to do our Form 700s.
700.
Rex Whittle serves as chair, Carla Valeri is vice chair, Paula Brolio, and Lorena Darby and Valerie Raggio Apley. So I am a paid staff member at work as needed. So basically I'm the one who manages the paperwork and sells the plots. And Jenny Grant is our groundskeeper, and she works about 32 hours a week. So,
Thank you.
we were formed in 1927. So the cemetery's been there much longer, but in 1927 the voters came together in all of Calaveras County and voted in special cemetery districts. So we are funded by 0.01% of the property tax, and that's how all of our cemeteries that are public cemeteries, we have a few privates in our area, but our 3 cemeteries came together as one cemetery, and anyone living in the 9522221 zip code are considered residents, and there's a fee associated with a resident versus a non-resident. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dick.
Okay, any other public comment? And anybody online, Rose?
No.
If you're online and you have public comment, you can take yourself off mute, raise your hand, or forever hold your peace. Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment and move on to item 8. This is our consent agenda. We have 2 items on consent tonight, minutes from September 17th and resolution 2480 for conflict of interest.
I'd like to pull B, please.
B as in boy? Yeah.
Yes.
All right, we're gonna pull B. And anybody have any reason to pull A? Public comment on item A for consent? Seeing none, bring it back for a motion for consent item A.
I'll make the motion. I'll second. Shemente?
Aye.
Brolio?
Aye.
Moncada? Aye. Herndon?
Aye.
Sherrod? Aye. Thank you.
Okay, item B is resolution 2480 for conflict of interest. Mike, what you got?
I understand this is a fairly routine matter. It occurs every 2 years, and I just have a question about the categories and how those categories are chosen. And, elected officials, do a Form 700, these folks don't. And it feels like it's kind of the same thing. Do they also sign some kind of form, or do you just say, okay, your job description would fall under these categories and then list it that way?
They are aware that they fall under this category, that they need to be transparent and have accountability when choosing vendors for certain projects.
Okay. And the job responsibilities and duties of some of the folks listed entails more, so that they're covered under more than just 1 or 2 categories.
Correct.
Interesting. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, any public comment on this item? Seeing none, looking for a motion on item B.
So moved.
We have a motion,
I'll second.
a second, Rose?
Shemente?
Aye.
Brolio?
Aye.
Moncada? Aye. Herndon?
Aye.
Sherrod?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to our regular agenda. Item A is a presentation from Bartle Wells Associate. And this is for updated figures for our Prop 218 rate study. Michelle, want to start? Go ahead.
So, we took back your questions and
Thanks,
ideas
Deb.
Thank you.
with the water rate study to look at the sewer rates. Steve and I met with Michael and Juana from Bartle Wells last Friday. And so they put together this presentation, and I'll let them go ahead and take it away.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everybody.
Hi.
So this is the updated water and sewer rate study. And next slide, please. So I'm going to be going over the water rate summary of what was, I think we had a majority kind of decision on the water rates, and just want to recap that. And then going over the wastewater financial plan and rate scenarios, and then talk about next steps, and then answer any questions and have a discussion. Next slide. So this is a summary of the water rates that we recommended. So there's no rate increase for the current fiscal year, 24-25. And then the recommended rate increases shall not exceed 3% per year. And previously we had proposed 5%, but we were able to reduce that to 3% by using reserve funds to help meet projected capital costs instead of using debt. For the UWPA pass-through, there is no increase for the current fiscal year, 24-25, and the recommended pass-through shall be phased in and not exceed 6.22% per year. And then there's an option of establishing reserves for the UWPA at $250,000. And to comply with Prop 218, the funds would need to be applied as a reduction to future rates rather than paid out as a refund. Next slide. So on the wastewater, we're recommending no rate increases for the current fiscal year of 24-25. And our recommended rate increases shall not exceed 2% per year, and previously we proposed 2%. And we've come back with an optional scenario, which is no increase with delay of CIP and elimination of $5 million of pay-as-you-go that we had in the financial projections. Under this scenario, we're still recommending to change the rate structure. So you would still need to notice the wastewater rates as well as hold a public hearing. Because some customers would see an increase in their bills. So this is an overview of the wastewater study scenarios. And we've got 3 different scenarios. On all scenarios, there's no increase for the current fiscal year. And there's the fixed monthly billing for residential users. And currently that's $107.95. And under all scenarios, there's volumetric billing for the non-residential users per gallon of winter use. And that's what we define winter as January through April for Angels Camp based on your data. And there's a minimum billing for non-residential users. So the only difference between the scenarios is with the non-residential users and the minimum that they would pay. So under scenario 1, we would keep the current $136.30. Under scenario 2, we would reduce the minimum to match the residential minimum. And under scenario 3, we would eliminate the minimum charge for non-residential users. And that's per month per account. And next slide, please. So we're asked to look at kind of what the rate revenue difference would be. And for FY 2024, you budgeted $3.5 million. And we updated the revenue estimates based on your latest usage data. So under scenario 1, you would essentially collect the budgeted amount of revenue at about $3.44 million. Under scenario 2, you would only lose $40,000. And scenario 3 is $100,000 for the year. So under all 3 scenarios, you would be financially solvent under the 2% that we're recommending. Next slide. And so this is the 5 years of rates with the 2% increases for scenario 1. Currently, so the proposed for FY 25-26 will be 110.11, and that would go up to 119.19 over the 5 years. And the non-residentials would go from 0.0212 in 25-26 up to 0.0228 in year 5. And then that minimum charge for the non-residential would increase to 139.03 in the first year, up to 150.49 in year 5. Next slide. So this is the scenario 2.
Did I go back?
Oh, sorry.
There.
Yeah, perfect. So scenario 2, this helps out the low users a little bit because essentially we're reducing that minimum charge for the commercial. So you see no change for residential, but with the non-residential would go from 0.0212 up to 0.0228, and that minimum charge would go from 110.11 up to 119.19. Next slide. So this would be the best scenario for a really low use customer. So we'd eliminate the minimum charge, and so they could actually be charged less per month than a residential customer. And so essentially it's the same as the last option. So it would go to 0.0212 up to 0.0228 on the usage rate, and there'd be no fixed component to the non-residential. Next slide. And so we came up with an optional scenario to delay your CIP in the first 5 years and move that to years 6 through 10, and then remove the $5 million of pay-as-you-go that we had projected initially in the out years. And under this scenario, you would not need any increases, so you can keep the current rate. So residential would still pay the same rate, $107.95 for the next 5 years. And that's FY 25-26 to FY 29-30. And then for the non-residential, their minimum charge would either be the $136.30 in scenario 1, $107.95 in scenario 2, and then $0 for scenario 3. Next slide. So these are the next steps. Once we get a decision on the wastewater rates, we would look to send out the Prop 218 notices, which would show the proposed rates and establish the date for the public hearing. And you need at least 45 days notice from the date that those notices are postmarked until the public hearing. And then during that, we would have public outreach, and then finally the public hearing for both water and wastewater, and then the rates would first be effective July 1st of 2025. Next slide. And so that's it for the presentation.
Okay.
So Michael, could we look at slide number 3 again?
Number 3.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, that's the water.
Scenario 3?
no, not scenario,
Oh.
I'm sorry, no.
Tell me when.
Okay, keep going down, please. No.
Oh, the other way?
The other down. No, not, okay, so this one, keep
One more?
going down, please.
Scenario 1.
That's in scenario 2.
2.
How about scenario 3?
There's 3.
So, there was the one with, maybe it's this one, the pay-as-you-go. So, Michael, does this one show that if we adopted this one, is this where the $40,000 a year decrease would occur? Because the non-residential would now go to 107?
That's scenario.
No, so we're comparing just your current rate revenue with the rate structure
Okay.
based on your current rates. So if you kept the current level of rates and just did the rate structure change that you're currently charging for FY24, that's where the difference comes.
Okay.
So they got the memo from the last meeting about the CIP that we were putting forward and then the CIP that we were gonna hold on. So that's where we've got some of the scenarios.
Yes, based on our special meeting with the CIP presentation, that's where that 5 million comes from. It's the last, I want to say, 4 to 6 projects on that list would be eliminated. Or not eliminated, they would be postponed for something after year 10.
So if we implemented the same rate as for residential as non-residential, that would be the loss of $40,000 then, Michelle? We would see loss of revenue?
That's what they're projecting.
Right. But, last time we talked about multiple meters being shared, or I'm sorry, 1 meter being shared by multiple tenants.
Yeah, we have 25 accounts that share meters.
Share a meter.
Yeah.
Did we do any research on the type of use?
We did. And so we have about 38 commercial customers that are considered low use, meaning they use 0 to 1 units per month. And so actually, Juana had put together a spreadsheet for me from data that Andrea had sent over so that we could calculate the different rates and do a comparison and sort it by type. And so we do have the different types. We worked with Caitlin to get off of the business licenses. So this spreadsheet is sorted by type of business, and then we could look at the usage during the winter months, and then Juana went ahead and put in the calculation for the 3 different scenarios. We also put in a column to look at their current billing so we could do some analysis of how that's going to impact them. But definitely, like for example, we talked about the small store with 1 bathroom and whatnot. If we went to 100% volumetric, where currently right now annually they're paying like $1,300 it would be about half, going by a volumetric, looking on actual usage, so.
And if we went
That's scenario
volumetric
three.
across the board
For commercial.
for commercial,
Scenario 3 that Michael presented
That'd
out
be
there, the
100,000.
100,000.
that'd be $100,000.
Correct.
If we went to the residential, they would still see a savings
It would.
than their current, you know.
Mhm.
And I think the question was asked, and I asked Chris O'Flynn whether or not he did something differently with that water, and there's no additional chemicals used. That water and wastewater is just being treated the same way, so, you know, I'm not sure there's a rationale to be charging more.
Yeah.
And that's what, you brought
That's
that
kind
up
of
the
the
last
direction
meeting.
I can't wrap my mind all the way around why.
Right,
Um,
right.
Yeah.
And, you know, Michael, I'm sure Michelle shared, you know, last meeting, we allocated around $9.3 million, and we outlined the projects that we wanted to see done first. And, you know, Michael, if we didn't raise any rates, we would still build our reserve on an annual basis, correct?
I believe so, but yeah, it wouldn't be excessive.
It wouldn't be excessive, but, I mean, if we were lucky enough to secure grants, we have 9, so we have about, you know, $12 million more. And I'm not sure if the $12 million that we had in reserve was just from the last 5 years and not doing anything, or if it was more than 5 years building. So, but I mean, at least, go ahead, guys, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No, I would just think that, you know, we would be able to build that reserve and start ticking off more of the projects if we didn't raise rates also.
Yeah, we're showing that you'd be in good financial shape if you didn't raise rates. I think you've done, you know, a lot of the heavy lifting in the last 5 years, and that's really put you in a good position.
Okay, so do we need to go back through, well, let's take a quick break and let's have public comment
Yeah,
real
yeah.
quick, and then let's go back to our scenarios. Does that
Okay,
sound okay?
Yeah.
Okay, public comment. We'd love to hear from members of the public on this item.
Good luck. You're doing
Help
well.
us out.
Thank you.
Okay,
No, this is tough.
okay, so,
oh, I just have one other question, and I think it's been we've talked a lot about the Utica Reserve, because there's one part of this that if we said no increases, we would have to increase the contribution, because our contribution in Utica is gonna go up, and we're almost there, but, you know, how much of a reserve do we wanna really keep in that Utica? I know there's 250,000 plus.
No, there's more
No,
now.
there's like 400.
That's why,
There's 400.
that's why it says
So-
they're gonna spend
And
down.
so you're gonna spend it down, Michael, softening the Utica contribution and to 250.
We will ramp up to 6.0.
Yeah, that was an option if you wanted to
Okay,
reduce.
you're right. That's right, it's
But if you didn't do that, you would have about 1 year's worth of payments in reserve, which is our recommendation.
to keep that there, yeah,
So they're
Right.
gonna keep the 250.
rainy day.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is anyone screaming out at you, or you want me to go?
Well, I love not having to raise rates.
Right.
And I also am just thinking about the business community and being business friendly, trying to get more businesses to come here and having, you know, reasonable water rates for businesses. But there are certain businesses that use a lot more water, car washes, restaurants, you know, things like that. And so I'm just looking at the scenario where we actually do away with the non-residential flat fee plus the volumetric billing, and looking at maybe, is there any movement for the the volumetric that you could do if we took away that flat fee plus add that on, that you would increase the volumetric fee because then the heavier users are gonna be paying for the water that they use. But that was just one of the things that I was thinking about. And then the antique store that has a bathroom and a plant aren't really using that much water, so theirs would go kind of
Significantly down, yeah.
Well, and the no increases, I just want to be clear, is just for wastewater. The
Right.
water would still.
Well, the water still has to- at
Based off
2%.
of what you, yeah.
2%.
And the scenario 3 is 100% volumetric, so there is no flat fee. You just pay for what you use based
on
off
the
of
wastewater.
For the
Okay, so that's
wastewater.
flushes and, yeah,
Mhm,
wash
mhm.
machines.
Or like if it's a car wash, it's the water
Yeah,
that's,
that's going down.
So the
That's
car
going
wash
after
could
that.
go up, or the heavier users will go up
it
substantially.
will go up. Yes.
Okay.
And we, can I piggyback on that?
Yeah.
And we go 100 grand in the
In the
negative.
In the
Right.
negative, which is scary.
Okay. Will you go,
But the volumetric in scenario 2, and correct me if I'm wrong, Michael, is it's still based off of the flat rate is 107, and then after they reach the allotted amount, then they pay volumetric
After that, right?
Yes, correct.
After the
Correct,
base.
Michael?
Yeah,
Yeah,
And that's on all scenarios.
that's in all 3 scenarios, and that's the change from how we're currently billing, because right now, some are based off of the flat rate plus the volumetric, and some are just flat rate. And so this is changing that, so we're putting everybody the same. And then whichever scenario we choose, that'll either determine what the flat rate would be, or if there wouldn't be a flat rate. And then the volumetric based on usage.
What's, so, because I don't have it in front of me, what's the total that a non-residential would pay in a scenario 2 if you add in water per month?
Per month, again, what do I have? Would you guys have a scenario based on, what someone, like a water bill would be for a commercial average user or low, you wanna look at a low user?
Yeah.
yeah. For commercial, there's all different types of businesses. So I think we'd have to assume a certain level of usage. So maybe we could look at a customer that's similar in usage to a single family home. Juana, do you have that data available?
So for a single family home, we would be looking at 8226, and it's based on just the water portion for the typical family use.
And then we're looking at 11011 for wastewater first year. Sweet.
So from before, the overall monthly increase was only gonna be like $26 for residential over 5 years. Are we still there? I think I'm kind of going with what Carolyn wants. I want to know what the impact is gonna be on everybody's bill over 5 years.
favor, scroll back up to the water, so I can write that down. I think it, because we're 2% increase.
On sewer.
On water.
That's,
Water.
No, I thought,
we were on to add them, I think we're, because I want to see them together, is that what you guys are talking about?
Yeah, I'm trying to kind of combine.
Can you
them.
go back
Like
up
to
to the
know
water?
what someone's paying per month
With the waters.
in a bill.
What's that?
That second.
Oh, did it not give a slide on what the
It's
water,
not.
it didn't, okay.
I know, do we have that somewhere?
It's in a previous,
It's from our rate study on the, whatever date this was.
Well,
But the
see the
numbers
bill?
changed. That was my guess.
So Michael, I'll ask you a question for 1 second. On
Yeah.
the wastewater side, does either scenario well, how close do we spend ourselves down to 0 on the wastewater side with the CIP plan that we've approved? How far do we spend ourselves down, or do we get close to 0 with the CIP projects that we just approved?
No, so I think, Wanda, do you have that in terms of what the reserves would be?
So
Or
we stretch
the-
out the CIP projects across 10 years. And we go on the full volumetric, which would have no minimum. We're looking at probably close to 11 million at the end of 10 years. And then if we decide to keep the minimum for 136.30, it actually increases those reserves close to 13 million. But that's, of course,
That's over a 10-year, right?
It's that over a 10-year.
Okay.
Some key points are no additional spending on CIP, so it doesn't assume that there's any additional, and that there is some growth with the recent development project of Habitat for Humanity.
Okay. So I just don't want to spend ourselves with these projects. I don't want to spend ourselves at zero, and we're not doing these projects.
But I don't think, we had $12 million and we only spent 9 of it. So there's gotta be some reserves left in this
Right.
current account. And every year, even with your scenario, we're gonna add at least $1 million in the reserve.
I just want to be able in 5
Right.
years. My point is I want to
Right.
be able in 5 years because we have our projects we want to do and these ones we're postponing.
Right,
There'll be new CIPs that pop in. I
Right.
just want to have enough money in that fund to
Right.
start it and not have to wait to
Right.
build that fund
Right.
back up because that's where we were at
right.
years ago,
Right.
is we had no money to start those CIP projects, and we built it, and we're now starting those projects. I don't want to end up in the same spot where we have to wait another 5 years to start CIP projects. I want to have some money in the kitty to be able to start CIP projects. I just don't want to go, I don't want to go backwards $40,000 or $100,000 in the hole either.
I
And
don't
not, I don't know, I mean, like you said, we have millions in the bank still, but do you wanna, you're going,
It was just because we have it right now.
We
that didn't work
should not go
always.
backwards. That's what happened with previous councils.
I know,
And
and
then it ended up getting us into some financial issues.
so, I'm just expressing my concern about it, I don't wanna go backwards. And I definitely don't wanna raise rates either, don't get me wrong, everybody's struggling and it's hard right now, but, I think we have to raise something, so either way, keep going. There's my 2 cents for a second.
I did find the slide where you're looking at, so the average in our area for water monthly residential is 89.54, and we were proposing 82.26. So we were still under that average water, residential, single-family residential water average. Was that the slide you were looking at?
Yes, and then sewer right now is at what? How much are people paying for that on average?
So currently, they're paying $107.95, and we're proposing, if you went with scenario number 2, would be 110.
110.
Mhm.
So we're looking at 192 for your bill, your monthly bill before you flush your toilet. Is that right?
And we're at
Well-
180, yeah.
For commercial, where the residents would still pay a flat rate, they would not switch to volumetric, so they would just pay that flat rate of 110.
Right, until you went over, there's a baseline, I don't remember what the.
Residents, there isn't, correct? There's no sewer baseline for residents?
No, not on the sewer, no, on
Oh,
the water.
for commercial.
She was saying before, right, yes, okay.
So, Michelle, which one, I mean, we're trying to juggle and keep all these balls in the air. Which scenario is gonna have the least impact, like on the businesses in the community?
Yeah, so the volumetric one, like I said, in that
Right.
example, you had a business that was paying $1,300 and that went down like in half.
Right.
But the high use businesses will see more of an impact with that volumetric pricing. So like you have the car washes,
restaurants?
restaurants I
washes?
can look
Laundry,
at.
not.
So with the
Yeah.
commercial wastewater, is there a certain amount they get in volumetric before it starts
Only
ticking?
with the flat rate. The flat
Right,
rate.
with the flat rate.
The
They
volumetric
get it.
helps the low use users.
Okay.
So those 38 businesses that we have that are considered low, that volumetric would benefit them. They would be paying
So
a
you
lot
have,
less.
you have identified the businesses that we could do with low vol, that we could do volumetric.
How
Is
many,
it possible to do two different schedules? Michael, is it possible to do two different rate schedules?
So, under Prop 218, we have to treat all the users the
Okay,
same.
you answered the
So
question.
having two different rate schedules opens that up for
Okay.
legal
All
challenge.
right, okay. So if we went to, for non-residential, the same as we're charging residential, we'd see a $40,000 hit, and they would see some savings,
30.
right? I mean,
Yeah, but that would help out the low users.
Right.
The low users.
But it would not help out the heavy users then, would it?
They're still volumetric.
There's the volume would kick
Yeah.
in.
Because the volume would kick in afterwards.
Well, their bill would go down by $30 too, right? Can you scroll down to
So are we saying
scenario 2 for me, Rose?
Scenario
40,000?
Good.
So 40,000 is what we're gonna lose,
Mhm.
right off the bat. But based on volumetric, it's possible that that number would decrease?
No, it might increase because of the volume usage.
So, because they're gonna charge more based off of their volumetric, right? So that's kind of our worst case scenario, am I understanding that correctly?
And I can give an example, like I just pulled up some restaurants here. So one of the larger restaurants is paying $13.62 a month. It ranges from that down to $136 a month. The one that's paying $13.62 a month, under the different scenarios, looking at scenario 2, they would go down to $1,100 a month. So it would save them like $291 a month for that restaurant under scenario 2. It looks like in the spreadsheet that I have that also under volumetric, they must even out. So it looks like they would still have the same savings under that all volumetric. They would still be paying $1,100.
Okay.
For example, one of the smaller ones, $136. It looks like under the volumetric, they're gonna be paying a little bit more. They're gonna be paying about $200 more. And it could just be because they're on that flat rate, because they're a smaller restaurant, whereas the other one might already be on the volumetric rate.
Oh, I got
So
it.
that's what
Correct.
I was trying to
We have
understand, so it
it.
could kind of
Balance
weigh,
itself
yeah,
out.
balance itself
Mhm.
out. This
Yeah.
is just sort of a worst case, everyone on.
But the pure volumetric would help the bigger businesses, but hurt the smaller
No, it would,
businesses.
it would help the smaller
Smaller
businesses. Because they're not paying that flat rate, they're gonna be way under that flat rate.
Gotcha.
So they're paying about half is under that scenario, it cuts their bill in half. But that's where you see the lost revenue of 100,000, a lot of that is that.
So would you say you had 13, how many low-use businesses?
Low use, we had 38.
So 38 low-use. Just out of curiosity, how many high-use businesses do you have? Like, I'm assuming the laundromat is a high-use business. You know what I mean?
Froggies.
Right, and I just, I hate to hurt those high-use businesses.
Probably Save Mart.
Probably Save Mart, restaurants,
Yeah.
We have markets. and-
hotels, you know what I
Oh,
mean?
hotels, yeah.
All,
We have
I'm
hotels
assuming,
in here.
you know, the timeshares, all the hotels are high-use.
Can I jump in real quick?
Yeah.
Michael, can you make sure I understand? Scenario 1, scenario 2, and scenario 3 are all volumetric.
Yeah.
It's just scenario 1 is a minimum charge, scenario 2 is a minimum charge, scenario 3, there is no minimum charge. So none of the scenarios proposed are intended to help the high volume users, right? Scenario
That's right,
3 will help
yes.
the low volume users because it's all volumetric with no minimum, right? So regardless of scenario 1, scenario 2, or scenario 3, a high user is going to pay the same amount, scenario 1, 2, or 3, because they're all going to surpass that minimum fee.
They're already volumetric.
Okay, so 1, 2, or 3, the high users all pay the same.
They're all gonna pay the same under all 3 scenarios. Is that correct, Michael?
Yes, that's
Yes.
correct. And so the scenario 2 and scenario 3 just help the low users that are under that minimum amount of use.
Okay,
The
so
high
that
users
helps.
are gonna pay the same.
Okay,
So
thank you.
this took
Thank
the
you.
low, this is basically the direction we gave you at the last meeting, was to take the low, non-commercial, or non-residential payers and put them on a fixed base rate, kind of similar to, I think we used this scenario that a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home is using way more water, flushes and things like that, than a small
With laundry
antique
and-
store with 1 houseplant that barely has a bathroom. So you're basically putting them on that for scenario 2, for scenario.
That
2.
was what you requested.
It says on your overview slide page, or slide 18, it says volumetric billing for non-residential users for scenario 1, 2, and 3. But then it says winter use January through April. Is this only volumetric for 4 months? Or is this just looking at a snapshot of 4 months?
No, so the way it works is we do a 1-year look back of the winter period, and we take an average of those 4 months. And then we apply that to the volumetric rate. And so
Okay.
and that gets the same bill each month based on that average use for the whole year.
It's not going to fluctuate based on consumption. We don't,
It applies that for the rest of the year,
12.
based on that snapshot,
for this
Okay.
12 months, July through June.
like your PG&E bill can do.
Okay, and so it's correct, switching everything to the volumetric 100% for commercial, that's what the impact is. The different scenarios just help out the low end user. And so, for example, you asked for a supermarket, I looked at some of the larger supermarkets, they're actually on this volumetric going to have savings of, it looks like their bill is gonna go down about $1,000 a month, so. But that's switching to volumetric, because in all
Right,
3
but we lose
scenarios,
them.
they're paying the same thing.
Right, so
But
they gain
compared to what
they
they're
gain
currently
1,000, but
paying.
we lose 100,000 off that volume.
Off of that
Yes.
volumetric, yes. But by having a flat rate factored in there, that helps balance out that loss. That's why you have 3 scenarios.
Is there a way to hold businesses harmless and so that they don't go out of business because their water bill triples? I mean, I mean, right now, I guess, I mean, I agree with Jen. I mean, it's, I don't know, I mean, it felt broken, but how broken is our current system? Maybe is that the best that we can do? And so that it protects if we distribute, I guess, the pain across the board as opposed.
You're talking about going back to a flat, because we, yeah, we.
Yeah,
We're talking about scenario 1.
Yeah, I
Or,
mean,
no, it's talking about the current way we're
Of the
doing
current,
it.
okay.
But
And not do volumetric?
and not
but
do.
then, but we have some people currently on
We
volumetric.
have some on.
We have
it's
on
not
some
across the
people,
We
board.
have about 40 people on volumetric.
But I thought we couldn't have, how can we do that?
Yeah, good question.
I don't know.
I
know
don't wanna
the
get
last-
anybody in trouble.
It's okay. No, the last rate study though, I think we did have 2 different options in the rate study. But I don't know if that was meant to apply to everybody volumetric and everybody, you had one or the other. Do you know, Michael, on the last rate study?
Yeah, we had 2 different categories. One for kind of the lower use commercial customers, and one for what we called other institutional, which were higher use customers. So we had 2 different
That's what we wanted to
buckets.
get rid of that.
Yeah.
We wanted to get rid of that other institutional, we didn't know what it was.
Because what is it? What is other institutional? What is it?
Right.
Okay. Okay, Alvin, do you have something, you're chomping at the bit, you wanna jump?
I don't know, I'm gonna go,
I mean,
I'm
we
gonna
have
say I'm
3
gonna go
scenarios.
on scenario 1 or scenario 2. For me, scenario 3 is out with being 100,000 in the hole. And even scenario 2 going in a deficit on it is not But I also understand wanting to help those small businesses and different things, but we're going in the hole too. So, I mean, my number one is for scenario one. So there's my.
But scenario one is still volumetric
It is,
for
but
non-residential. It's just,
there's a flat fee for everyone.
Right.
And then if you go above that, then that volumetric kicks in. So the small users would never theoretically hit that, but your bigger users would. And then,
so can we, I'm kind of leaning in the same direction. I'm not a fan of scenario 3. That's too much of a hit for me. Can we go through the differences one more time, Michael? I apologize, between scenario 1 and scenario 2, so we have a clear understanding?
Yeah, so the difference comes down to just the commercial customers and just the minimum charge that's applied. So in all 3 scenarios, it's 100% volumetric, subject to a minimum charge. And it's just the level of the minimum charge that we're deciding between. So on scenario 1, it's a higher fixed rate than the residential because commercial customers use more water on average. So in scenario 2, it's the exact same minimum charge as the current residentials are paying. So that ensures that no one's paying less than a single family home. And that's really the difference. So scenario 2 helps out the low users that come in below what a residential would pay based on their usage rate. And that's the only difference, is it helps out those customers. And the drawback is the $40,000.
But that puts everybody on volumetric. And so like Isabel was saying, there could be some gain for people that are then paying for triggering the volumetric use because they're using more and they haven't been paying for it. So the 40,000 might not be a real number. It might work itself out in the wash, for lack of a better word.
Or it could put somebody out of business.
Or it could, well, yeah, but they've been able to not pay for water that they're using for, I mean, and I don't know who these people are, but hypothetically.
So the commercial, on the commercial for scenario 2, at 110, they get there's no volume built into that 110. They as soon as they flush their the toilet, it's given
there's
a volume.
volume.
There is volume.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just 6,500 gallons.
So many, yeah.
Okay.
And then once they go over that, then they would be built. But we're looking at winter usage from the previous winter. So that was the data we sent to Barrow Wells, and they had the data for that period of time to calculate what their bill would be under the 3 different scenarios. So they can predict what that loss of revenue would be because they're looking at actual numbers.
Data.
And this is the data from last winter, January through April.
Okay. So you're not feeling like the 40,000 is far off, but you're feeling pretty confident on that 40,000 for scenario 2, negative? Michael?
Yeah, so because we base it on your actual usage, and that can fluctuate year to year. So it is possible, but it is based on winter usage, so that typically does not fluctuate as much as your summer usage. So I think it's going to come in very close to that in future years.
Can I jump in one more time? That $40,000 in the negative and the $100,000 in the negative is actual cost, and it won't fluctuate. But it's based on last January through April, I think.
Yeah.
When this goes into effect July 1st of next year, it's going to be different numbers because we'll be talking about this January. So it might change, but whatever it is, we'll stay consistent for the entire year until we reevaluate in the following year.
So looking at some of these on my spreadsheet, some of these low-end users, they're currently paying the flat rate. They have $136 a month they're paying. By going to this, because they're not going to go over that minimum, their bill's actually going to drop to 110.
Right.
Under scenario 2.
Yeah.
And if they're not triggering the volume over the
right, and they won't
minimum, then they
because
won't.
they're so far.
Right.
Yeah.
The only difference between scenario 1 and 2 is this one is a what, $29.
$28.92.
$20.92. So the only thing we're doing is we're eating
Yep.
$29, what'd you say? $29.
$28.92
Per month.
28.92 cents
For
per
38,
per month in the 26, and then it's 27. So we're
For the low-end
Good.
users.
right, because the volumetric stays the same, 212, 216.
That goes up by 13%, right?
Right, but it stays the same in
Right,
both
okay.
scenarios.
Okay, so I'm concerned, I mean, we threw the baby out with the bathwater last month and said, or last time, and, you know, we don't need to do, you know, divide it up. But Michelle, if we go back, I know, I'm sorry, but if we go back to the other rate schedule, we could then protect some of the higher users. Because this isn't gonna protect the higher users.
We can look at that analysis and see, I mean, like I said, the current rate schedule I've put into the spreadsheet, what their bill is currently, so I could compare it. And so when I give you the example that they're paying, the small people, and the users are paying 136, and they'd be paying 110, this is better for them.
Right.
We could go through and identify the ones that are gonna be hit hard. I know, like we talked about car washes, we did discover that their car washes will increase under the volumetric, but they also have a 60%, right?
Recycle
water fee that, and so we're, you know, looking at that and factoring that in. So the impact, I think when we looked at it, because we also realized that there is the system, the way it's billing and whatnot, for the car washes, we need to relook at that too. So no matter how we change, that may still go up, because I think initially it was not set up for,
right.
yeah. So I think that's a given, that it will go up no matter what.
Which one fixes the issue with Far East and La Hacienda? Which, would volumetric solve that, or is it just because there's one meter and they're feeding two? Bill, what's gonna fix that?
I think any of these three scenarios would fix that.
Would fix that?
Because it makes everyone that's not a residential customer
The same.
a non-residential customer, and every non-residential customer pays the same thing, pays the same rate. Where right now, there's all these different possibilities based on the last rate scenario. This definitely cleans it up.
But Michelle, without adding another layer to protect the higher users, I mean, there is no other way to do that, right? We'd have to establish another layer,
They have to be in
a different category.
Like they had before.
Like they had been before.
Right.
Right.
That makes
And
it what our
give an example, like when I read off earlier about the restaurants, the highest sewer bill for a restaurant monthly is $13.62. Under all three of these scenarios, it goes down to $1,100. So they're saving $290. So it's gonna benefit
the
them
higher,
under
the higher
either
user.
than what our current method is right now.
Right, so it would benefit them.
Well, I'm for scenario one.
On that rate statement?
I worry about laundromats, I worry about car washes. I mean,
And we have the data. I mean, we can break those out.
Well,
more.
large employers, I mean, MACT,
Mac,
that's a lot of people.
Well, I mean, you're talking about World Mart,
World
Yeah,
Mart.
or, yeah, hotels.
you're talking about hotels, people that
Which
have a lot of,
right,
that is
You
a-
know.
Right.
So all of it has this, this impact on how much we're charging for rooms, how much you're paying for your car, like all of that. And but then it does affect like the bigger picture is like drawing business, drawing people, like, so but we have to pay our bills and we have to be able to cover our CIP
Right.
at the end of the day. So that's what we're talking about, is this balance, like how do we balance it all?
I do think cleaning up, and I do think cleaning up for everybody on a flat rate, whether you're, because it is, there are some businesses that are.
Yeah, there's inequitability.
Exactly,
Yeah.
I think this makes it fair across the board, which is what you guys, we brought up. I think there was a couple people who brought it up. I think this makes it equal playing field.
Michael, is there a way to, for those that would be heaviest hit, is there a way to implement it over time? To give them gradual way of building that into their business. A lot of businesses have their rates already determined for next year, right now, or whatever. Is there a way to help them so that we don't force somebody to not be able to do business anymore?
Yeah, I think one thing that you could look at is with your non-rate revenues, being able to use that kind of to phase in some of the impacts. And I think currently you're using your late fees to for a low income discount, but potentially looking at your interest income to kind of use that for rate affordability. So if you have some customers that are going to really get hit hard, you can phase that in using interest income.
Can we do that? Can we use late fees to?
Well, we already used the late fees for the cap.
I know, but something.
But we can use interest income.
What are we currently using the interest on?
It's just earning interest.
Just earning interest,
We
okay.
have not designated it for anything, it's just going into the reserves.
Is that coming back to us at mid-year?
Coming, the interest?
Yeah, to make decisions on.
We're just going
Money
into
that
the
we have.
CIP or whatever.
Oh.
Is it just sitting?
That was already going into.
Yeah, it was just proposed in the budget, so, and it just goes back into the reserves. But always, I mean, every time we give you the treasury report or anything, we could put an agenda item if there was something we wanted to use it for. But right now, it's basically funds that are there that are not earmarked, and it's not rate revenue, so we could use it to subsidize and support this impact.
What is the 24-25 schedule right now for sewer? How much is this?
It's 107 something, right?
It's 107.95 and then commercial and industrial is 136.80.
So the commercial and,
Per the last, yep.
so these guys, right? The institutional whatever, they won't see much of an increase if they're already there.
They're already in.
Because they're already at it.
Right.
And how many of those people are on that?
For the.
Right now, that non-categorized, that,
Yeah.
right. How many people are in there now?
40.
Those 40 will never see that there's going to be the same for the most part.
For the most part.
How much is volumetric going up from 24, 25 to 25, 26?
I think that was on the.
2%?
Yes, 2%.
So if you're holding in scenario one, then the big users aren't really gonna see a huge jump then. It will be gradual over the 5 years.
From the initial.
Yeah, because they're at 136 now.
That's 2%.
They're at 136 now.
Yeah. They're at 136, but the volumetric's going up 2%, so that's gradual over
Yep.
the 5 years.
And this isn't taking place until July of 25.
Right.
So what would whatever scenario we choose tonight, what would the next steps be for outreach and communication with being able to tell each person or each company, each business how they're going to be impacted so that they can plan for July 1st of 2025?
So
40,
that's the
what'd you
first
say,
step we
45
can
days,
take in
Michael?
Looking
Sorry.
at how, oh, it's okay. The spreadsheet where we have it broken out by each customer, and we're able to see those who would have a greater impact, and we could identify them
And break the news.
and outreach, yeah. And I mean, at first I would think we could bring you here with a plan of looking at if you were interested in the non-rate revenue, of looking at what that would look like to be able to apply something towards their increase over the next 5 years. So we could bring some different scenarios about that. But we do have it broken out. We know, identifying which ones will have the greater impact, and then it would be outreach and speaking with them.
Or identify and create a different tier for those folks,
Or a cap
or protect them. I'm not a real fan of using interest money, because that money could be used for other things as opposed to softening the water. I'd much rather look at another tier. I'd like to kind of come full circle and talk about where are we as a council regarding water rates? And we can increase up to 3%. Is that something we're gonna do? And we always have that option, but are we gonna say, no, we're not gonna increase water rates? Because we have identified CIP projects, we're using reserves. I worry about, we have 1,700 residential meters, and the economy isn't getting better. And so, we spent a lot of time talking about how to make it better for businesses. Now I think we need to talk about how do we make it better for the residents. We can't do both sewer and water increases because, I get CIP projects down the road, I get all of that. I wouldn't mind the option, whether or not people are gonna hear it's an option, that we could raise to 3%, but on an annual basis, we could choose to or not to. I'm not sure they're gonna understand that. I understand the option, I understand CIP projects. I think we all need to be mindful of what people can afford.
And I want to remind everyone too that we're just going to approve the rate that we can maximize up to, but we every year don't
Right.
have to do that.
But can Michael, how do you sell that idea, Michael? And the outreach?
I think the wastewater is in a better position, so I think I would recommend going with the no increase on wastewater. But with water, I think you really need these increases, especially because a lot of it's out of your hands with Utica. And so I think if you wanted to soften the blow anywhere, the wastewater, just going for the 0% would be the best option. And I think that's a good message, when you're doing the public hearing and doing the public outreach, saying we're holding the line on wastewater. We're not doing increases, we know this is a burden. And so, we're just changing some of the rate structure, but we're not collecting additional rate revenues beyond what we're currently collecting. So I think that's a good message.
But, so Michael, could we just take that portion that we need to cover the Utica fee and not raise it a total of 3% then? We could raise it whatever that percentage is in order to reach our contribution for Utica then. Could we do that? Because that's a fixed cost.
You're facing 10% increases on that, and so if you don't increase it, you reach a point where you deplete your reserves, and then you're gonna have to do a really large increase.
No, I'm not asking that. I'm thinking keeping $250,000 as I think the council would agree to, and then increasing the Utica contribution by whatever we need to do over the 5-year period to get to that $545,000. Could we just do that?
I'm not sure I'm 100% understanding.
Okay, so instead of raising, our water bill is a combination of our domestic water and then a contribution to Utica on a monthly basis, which is like $13 a month now or something.
Correct.
Yeah.
Could we just raise that portion in order to generate the funds necessary on an annual basis to pay the Utica fee?
Right, and so my recommendation would not to do that based on what I'm seeing with the water enterprise. But theoretically, you could do that.
So you're saying not to raise water?
I'm saying we have to raise water enough to cover the Utica bill.
But it's its own separate.
It is, that's what I am, it is its own separate, correct?
Yes.
Water is separate.
No, but the Utica contribution.
Utica fee is a separate line item.
Yeah, could we just do Utica?
So you don't want to raise water at all, because there's
I'm
water,
thinking-
Utica, and wastewater.
Okay, so I'd be okay if we could sell it, that on an annual basis, we're gonna review it, and we can go to 3%. However, whatever council sitting here says, no, we're not raising water, but the Utica contribution has to increase on an annual basis in order to cover the cost at the end of 5 years.
So
you're
that
talking about
council
just
at that time would make that decision.
Well, I don't
Those
think-
5 people would be sitting down and saying, we can go 3%, where do we have to go? We have to do Utica. We have to do
Right,
whatever
right,
CIP.
but
So
I-
it might be 2%, it might be 2.5%, it might be 1 or 1.5.
So I think Utica has to be built in, and people need to know that. That's a fixed cost that we don't have any control over.
But the
But we
Utica is
can't
fixed.
use enterprise money to pay, Utica's a special, it's as a fiduciary.
Right.
fund.
Right,
And-
but part of this, Michael is talking about raising Utica on an annual basis to get us to $545,000.
That
At 5 years.
10% each
Right.
for 5 years,
So,
but we can't collect under enterprise and use it to pay Utica.
It's a
So-
straight
so-
pass-through.
Utica's 100%, what's that line item?
Right.
The bill goes to a special fund and
okay,
it's a fiduciary account.
so is that already, so that's
It's
not part of
even in
this,
the enterprise fund.
that's not part of this rate study then, Michelle?
It is
It's
because
6.22.
they determined the rate and
Right.
how much it would increase, but we can't cross the two funds. The
Okay,
water
so-
fund, we can't cross with Utica.
And it's actually 10, but we're using that reserve we have
Uh-huh.
to soften the blow down to
So
6.22.
So we could, so Michael, we'd have to, if we could, and people would understand, we could say that this rate study would allow us to raise the water rates by 3% on an annual basis, but the council on an annual basis can choose to raise it or not raise it, right? Because it's a total of 3% total, right? I mean, so if you said you're gonna raise the rates by 3% next year, then you've raised to the maximum that you can raise. Or no, it's 3% a year. Don't answer that
3%
question.
annually.
Okay, so, but let's go back to the Utica. I only had one cup of coffee. Let's go back to Utica now. So that Utica rate is already built into this rate study. So really, we're talking two different issues. We're talking the enterprise fund for domestic water, what do we want to do? And then we're talking enterprise fund. And I'm sorry, the Utica. So how do you, when you break this out and talk with people, we have to break that out, correct? And so they have to understand that the Utica fee is going to go up 6.22% on an annual basis. We're going to use reserve funds to soften that in order to get us to that 545 mark in 5 years.
Right.
And that's based off the Utica,
Right.
that's based off the Utica budget that we've had the
I've
group
agreed.
meeting on and agreed upon.
Okay, so,
I think if he was looking at this.
but we don't,
I think so.
so, but on an annual, so once we fix that, we don't need to come back on an annual basis and say anything about that, because that's gonna be fixed. So we say no sewer, Utica's gonna be raised by 6.22%, we're gonna soften it by using reserves. Water, we have the ability to raise water by 3% a year if the council so chooses to do it,
Yes.
correct?
Yeah, and that's our proposed option from last time.
It's on slide 42
Right,
of our
right,
last,
no, no,
remember
right,
the
yeah,
special
yeah, I
meeting
do,
where
I
it breaks
do.
it all down? I find this, so Michael, last presentation in August, you had a slide, it was for the monthly home impacts. I found it to be beneficial, it was slide 42 for me. And it broke it all down with the water meter charge, the Utica charge,
Right.
the sewer charge, and what the household impact would be. And for that day, I had computed that over 5 years, a monthly household that's using average water and average sewer wasn't gonna go up more than $30 in 5 years.
That's $30 a month, that's
$30
$360.
a month over 5 years.
But
So
at the end
altogether,
of that 5-year period, what you were paying, you're now paying $360 for. And if you're on a fixed income, is your income gonna increase enough just to cover that? That's my concern. That's my concern.
$26.37, not 30, but over 5 years is where I had done the math. But I think that was for residential, and that really hasn't changed. Residential hasn't changed much on us tonight, right, Michael?
That's right. Yeah, and so the 3%, we really recommend that because that's covering inflation, basically. And if you don't do that, those gradual increases each year by a tiny amount, you're gonna have to get to a 16% increase to make up for those 5 years. as it compounds. So that's what a lot of agencies run into, is they kind of kick the can down the road, don't do any increases, and then they're facing a 16% increase to make up for that, all those years where they weren't increasing the revenue. And in addition to that, they lose kind of the additional revenue from the increases over that 5-year period. So what we really recommend is you just gradually each year make small adjustments, because if you don't, I think you're going to be facing a big spike in the next rate study.
Yeah.
So, I mean, even on these CIP projects you've approved, they're today's prices. I mean, and when you start doing these a year after, 4 years, 5 years from now, I mean, that 2% or 3% that we're talking about won't even cover this type of stuff. And you're gonna, so, I understand what you're saying, but at the same point, you have to, I mean, you're talking about $360 a year. That's a lot in 5 years for some people.
On year 5, yeah, that's the.
On year 5, that's the maximum year.
Right.
I don't know what you do 100% either. I mean, you can't. That was my concern, is you can't go backwards.
But then we have money set aside for those low-income folks.
Through the
So if they
programs
really
that are
are
available.
strapped and cannot.
But that's
come
a
up
$40,000, I'm not talking, yeah.
with- No, it's the money that we
Right,
collect in
but
late
it's
fees,
a-
that if they can apply for something, then.
And you could always consider increasing that with interest
Right.
income,
Right.
because that's
Because I
having
would-
to use non-ranked
There was some
revenue.
other, how they could help with some.
Donation?
Yeah, there's some people are donating
You have
towards
people
the.
that-
Right, but no, I
come in
thought there was
donate.
like Sierra Hope or somebody, or was there a county organization that was, there was an assisted,
Yeah.
right.
And I know that the Catholic Church also
ADCA
has.
helps.
Is that what we get?
It's ADCA. Yeah.
They help with water sewer bills. There's avenues out there too.
Yeah.
And, you know, like the Sierra.
And while being
the-
sensitive to that, I get that. I don't want to see in year 3 into this where we go, we didn't give ourselves enough on either side to deal with some of the stuff we have to deal with. Or just, I mean, I remember paying 127 total for the bill, and now the bill's up to 170 something. You know, that wasn't that long ago because
Right.
you guys had to raise the rates. So I don't want to do that $50 increase. That's a big one.
Yeah.
And I do understand the
Baby
guy,
steps.
raising the rates
And I
is
think
rough.
that's the
There's a lot of-
responsible thing to do.
There's a lot of
I
things.
think I'm fine with the residential,
Because we
the
did a
commercial,
lot,
but
yeah,
I'm
we've done
still
a
on
lot
the
of
fence.
work on this. I mean, we got the CIP down because we had that presentation, we were able to really whittle down to what was necessary and what we could actually accomplish. So I think that we've done some good work on getting the costs down for people. Getting it down to 0, I don't think is, I don't think it's healthy per se for us as a city moving forward. I think we do need to allow ourselves a little latitude of a percentage or two to make sure that if something comes up, we're not stumped. Or going back in 5 years asking for 15%.
Not good to see.
I don't even care if you want to make it 2% on the
Yeah.
water. I mean, it's I don't know where, Michael, you said
Water's the
you
one
said
that's
you said water was the most flexible and wastewater is not the most flexible, correct?
Other way around.
Other way around? So I mean, so.
I did those, Michael, when we talked about it the first time we had this presentation. I did a 1%, 2% increase. I think 2% at least kind of follows suit with, the cost of living. It's going to be close to that. I get it's got a raise, but I always look at what does it mean at the end of 5 years when everything else goes up. I don't know. What happens, Michael, if we hold off for the first 2 years and then in the third year we raise it by 3%? I mean, that's a hit. I mean, there's no way to soften it. I mean, that's what.
What'd you say, Michael?
You could, adopt the 3% and then, hold off for a couple of years. But I think ultimately, your expenses are going to continue increasing. So at some point, you're going to need to kind of make up for those lost increases. I think 2% scenario, that is better than the doing nothing. So I think that while we wouldn't recommend that, you could do a 2%.
So I have a
And you can
We
do
can
it
come back
annually.
with that.
When we adopt it, we can say we only want to increase
By
2%,
2%.
not the 3 that we were allowed to. So it's a threshold that we can.
Because you're gonna look at the budget,
Yeah.
the costs.
And based
And that's
off
what
of-
we need to sell to the public.
But, and I don't think it's about selling anything, it's about being transparent. I
Right,
don't like that we're
but I
using
mean-
the word sell because that makes me feel
Not
like we're
selling,
doing
but that's
something
what, that's the
not-
message that needs to get out there, is that these rates are implying no more than 3% increase, of which we will responsibly look at that every year and not raise 3% unless we have to. We could maybe only raise 1 or 2,
So
responsibly.
that's the clarification question that I have. Based off of the single family home monthly bill impact, I'm looking at this, it was page 42 of what was presented to us in August. That is proposed at the 3%, which is what we're saying would be the maximum. And as a council, we could look at it and it would not increase more than that 3%, correct?
Water.
Right.
The
Water.
whole thing.
Oh,
Well, wastewater, you have to remember the sewer charges, Michael's brought back to not increasing
Not to
it now
increase sewer.
due to the 5 million savings. So this is not gonna increase by that $26. You're gonna hold your,
yeah.
at
107.
110. It ends up at 119, that's $9 difference. You're not gonna be charging them, it'll remain at 110.
Okay, but as far as the water goes, that is calculated at 3%.
Correct.
And
And
we can
Utica
go,
is 6.22.
So you're, instead of the 26, you're looking at $17.
Right.
And we still have money in our enterprise fund at the end of 5 years to start those new CIP projects. It doesn't spend us down to 0.
So that's $200 a year increase by year 5.
if we
At
did
the
what?
end, if we max it out
If
every
we
year.
leave sewer as is, 110 for 5 years, and then we allow the adjustment in water.
Well, then you gotta figure the Utica adjustment.
It's in there.
The Utica's already there.
It's already in there.
I'd be okay, I'd be okay with us saying to the public, if they would hear it, that even though we can raise our rates to 3%, we are only gonna raise it by whatever we decide on that
We
year.
initially were pitched 5%.
I know we were.
So
Yeah.
I would even say that, we could have raised it 5%, but we're going to hold
I mean,
on
you
wastewater.
Right.
you can picture it as we have to be financially responsible.
I get that.
And responsible with your plant and your,
We don't like
and
that.
your water lines.
She
and your
doesn't like
sewer.
sell and she doesn't like pitch.
Because I think it sounds shady.
Yeah, it sounds shady, but I'm
It sounds
saying,
totally shady.
you have
The
to
fact
be-
of the matter is that there are things that unfortunately we have to do, and that's
Right.
the downside and the hard side of sitting in these seats.
Well, it's not a hard, I think everyone understands that there are increases, there are cost of living increases. And, it's gonna cost more next year to do business than it cost this year. But, my sense is, while we should keep up with that, we shouldn't collect more than we really need to collect.
And then
Because
sell
we already have outlined, and we're gonna continue collecting money for our CIP projects, and we are gonna get grants. So, I think we all are mindful of the fact that, we may be headed for some tough economic times. And, while we have the ability to do it, we don't necessarily have to do it. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I'm actually now more worried about the wastewater thing and how we're gonna solve that
on the
So-
commercial side.
on the commercial side.
So we're all in agreement on the water residential side. We're all in agreement with the rates that are presented, not to exceed 3, but we need to hammer down these scenarios on wastewater commercial.
I think the caveat needs to be said. I think we have the ability to raise it 3, but it's gonna be the council's discretion of whether or not they do
Absolutely.
that.
Well, but,
Absolutely.
okay, but Michael, you're saying on the water side, we need to raise yearly.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing. I think you're gonna really fall behind if you don't do the 3%.
And I'm just throwing out that I'm not an expert, and I didn't sit here and run all these numbers, so I just want to say, and I get where everybody's going, but if we don't, then the expert guy is also saying we're falling behind.
Well,
too. But it depends how much is in that account and everything else, and we can rerun numbers yearly, and we can have this, we'll have this discussion.
We end up getting a nice.
We're gonna have this, right, we're gonna have this discussion yearly.
But if we don't raise sewer, I'm not meaning to be funny, Jen, I apologize,
No, no,
I'm
no.
Italian. But if we don't raise sewer, that number that Jen came up with, it's not gonna be $360.
No, 200.
I mean,
It was
It's
two
good.
hundred and four.
Right.
And you took the sewer increase that we had in some of
Sewer-
those earlier scenarios out,
Sewer does not
correct?
increase if we, for residential or commercial, but I don't know what scenario we're going for, but, for residential, if you don't raise sewer and you have your other, increases, it's just 204 by year 5 for the whole year.
So it's not, it drops from that 360 then, or whatever that number was.
Yes.
That's what I'm asking,
Yes,
because you don't have the sewer.
correct.
So
And that's scenario.
Well, that's not in
that's
the,
it, scenario. That's just looking at those spreadsheets, right?
it's holding at 110 and 11
For residential.
for the residential.
Yes.
I'm glad we have easier topics to talk about. Yeah, right.
Okay.
So we're
So
gonna-
the total increase over 5 years on the water is $15.13 a month. And the total increase on wastewater is $11.24. So you can eliminate the $11.24 on wastewater and just have the $15.13 for the average user on water. And that's over 5 years.
That's the largest it would get after the 5th year, or that's?
You have to factor in UW.
So it's 150.
Utica, yeah.
So it's 180 then, huh? After 5 years, the total amount is 180,
Plus Utica.
plus your.
So the total amount, yeah,
Okay, that's that way.
I think that's why I came up with 204.
yeah, 202.51.
Okay, so I think this has now gone like straight math on us. And we're all hunting and pecking and we've got our calculators out. I think what I would like to see is the breakdown. We're all sitting here scratching. I'll go back to last meeting in August, the last slide for the single family home impact.
Yeah.
Can we get that updated?
With no sewer increase,
Right.
yeah. And with
Well, we're
Utica
gonna
water,
move forward here in a minute on which scenario we wanna kinda try to lean towards on the sewer side.
I think we are gonna need to see, I don't wanna do an additional presentation, but I'm thinking
know.
we're gonna need to see something about sewer, what the options are now. I really do.
You mean the impact? What do you
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, well, yeah, and so do we want to include, we took a group out, do we want to put that group back in to soften it? I need to see that in front of me again.
I don't know, or do you make it fair across?
Yeah, I want it fair across the board.
Well, I'm not saying this, okay,
Or, I'm sorry, I want it applied, not fair, but I want it,
but
Same
I want
methodology.
yeah, I
Right,
want,
same
it has to
methodology.
start making sense, because it hasn't been right for a long time.
So I mean, that's where I'm at, is I like the scenario one, just because, and I'm just saying that because it makes it's across the
Yeah.
board. There's no other categories you can fall into or be in, if everybody pays the same.
And it's based on your volume.
Right.
so Michael, if we're not raising sewer rates, then we could keep that volumetric rate the same, correct? Because the volumetric rate is
Yes.
going up by 2%, so we could take that out of there. Even though it's not a ton of money, we could take that out of there.
Yep, and that's, the optional slide shows you that basically you'd have no change to the rates from current.
And we could follow suit, the same we're doing with sewer, and just not increase sewer by 2% also. I mean, so we would just stay at 110.11 for the next 5 years then, or 4 years, correct?
If you scroll down a couple more slides, it shows that option, that, there you go.
Okay,
So it's currently
107.
107.95, yeah,
So it would just say
That's-
that. Oh, I see.
yeah, for 5 years.
So we could do that the same for businesses and keep the volumetric rate the same.
Right.
Right, you're actually dropping it the second year there. But that's the one that there'll be winners and losers though, correct? Michelle?
Switching to volumetric.
Yeah.
But that's correcting everything and having everybody paying the same. So it's not having the different categories.
I was thinking about taking a quick pause and opening up
Yeah,
public
let's,
comment one more time. I would love to hear from the public on
yeah,
our madness. Whether we're missing something, whether we're going down a rabbit hole, or whether you think we, I mean,
I
we
can
would love to hear
appreciate, I
from
can
you.
appreciate all the opinions I've heard. I like correcting terminology so it makes sense to the public. I enjoy that. It is a fact, everything is getting more expensive, and what you have to decide on for the city is no different. And I would rather you increase your rates and not have a big jump in the future. That would hurt, I think, more than these little bites. That's like the expert said. You know, you're better off doing it. I would, as much as it would hurt, I'd be fine if you came to me and said 3% and this is why. Transparency, it's just what it is.
Yeah.
I would piggyback on that, the transparency, the not selling it idea.
Yeah.
And especially in this community, in this county. And then I know for myself going forward, this is huge for me, possibly starting either in Angels Camp or in Calaveras County, service-connected, veteran-owned business. So I am going to be on the residential side. So this is influential on whether I put that location in Angels Camp or not. But at the same time, I do know over the past 8 years, the amount, there's a lot of people that have talked to me, oh, you live in Angels Camp, wow, you know, the water has gone up significantly. But that transparency, I really concentrate on that in this community.
thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I don't know, I'm tired, so.
Where are you at?
Well, I have another,
Go.
I guess, clarification question. So tonight, say we say scenario, whatever, 16, and we're gonna do this, and then we do public outreach, and then, so we send out the notices, we do public outreach, we hear from the public. Do we have the ability to then come back?
And switch scenarios?
Yeah.
and switch
Yeah.
it up?
So there's nothing
Or is what
final
we're
until
deciding
you
on right
adopt
now.
the rates.
I thought we did.
So you could even decide at the public hearing not to adopt the rates. Nothing is decided until you adopt them after the public comment at the public hearing.
Can we switch it up though? Can we switch the scenarios or change it from 3 to 2%? Can we do that based on what the public's perception is or
Reaction.
input? Yeah, reaction.
S-
Or is
So-
it, are we set with what we went out with on the 218? Yes or no? Like,
The maximum, yes, is set, but you can implement less than what was noticed.
okay. Did you hear that, Mike?
No, I do, I just, you know, I'm just concerned that, and Michael, and everyone is kind of agreeing that, you know, we don't want to go backwards. No, we don't want to go backwards. Well, the last time we collected $12 million, and at the end of 5 years, we're now allocating it. So we're going to be collecting all this money. And to be transparent, people need to see us spending the money to improve the system
Right.
and not sit on it. Because why are we collecting money? You know, I understand the cost of living goes up and everything else, but, you know, how much can we sell an ice cream cone for? You know, and so I hear it, I understand it, but I don't want us to be in the same situation 5 years from now where we're allocating dollars that we should have been allocating on an annual basis because we're collecting them. We need to spend it then. And not
See,
sit on
at our
it.
last meeting, at our special meeting, we brought this up and we said, we want to see the CIP update to know what the money's being spent on. We just had that CIP update. It identified our projects and our timeline for 8 of the 15
Right.
projects, or they're in the next 3 to
Right.
5 years. So will that be part of the public outreach with the 218 so that it
I
justifies?
think we should make
I think
it
we
part
should.
of
Yeah.
It needs to be part,
It
showing that we're
absolutely
gonna.
will, and I
Okay, thank you.
appreciate you asking, I was just about to jump
Good,
in.
I saw you chime
So,
in.
I have a recommendation.
Thank you.
So, for
'Cause I'm
what it's worth.
Failing over here.
I think we've heard very clearly from Michael that there is a need to have the ability for 3% on the water side. Whether we actually do it year on year, we've heard from the expert that you need to have that option. And it's probably gonna happen, 3% every year, just so we can keep up, just so we don't have to jump at the end of year 3 or 4 or 5 to something that is unmanageable. So I think we've heard that pretty clearly. The 6.22, you guys have done a great job from my perspective in lowering that from the 10 that's really taking us down to 6.22 on the Utica. And that's we're gonna have to do that, okay? So where there's a little bit of wiggle room is on the wastewater side. And again, credit to you guys because you made me come and give you a presentation where you chopped some capital improvement projects. There are things that we may or may not have been able to get done in that 5 years. As a result of the presentation and the action you took, the consultant was able to reduce another $5 million off the top of that. That brings it down to a 2% on the wastewater side. By chopping that 5 million off, it could be a 0% on the wastewater side. And that was your work. That's the work that you guys did to bring it down from 2 to potentially 0. However, my recommendation, 3% on the water, 6.22 on the Utica. On the wastewater, keep that 2%.
Yeah.
With the understanding that you have the recommendation from the consultant that you could keep that, and it's not smoke and mirrors, it's not playing games, it's not selling it. You could actually have a 0% on the wastewater side for the next 5 years, depending on economic conditions and how things fluctuate. But it still gives you the option, in a worst case scenario, that you could increase to 2%. If you lock in at the 0% for the next 5 years, we're stuck.
Yep.
There's no option to increase whatsoever. You've heard that from the consultant, 2% is responsible governance, but you can drop it to 0 year on year based on the 5 million that we cut out of the CIP. So, in summary, my recommendation, 3% for water, 6.22 for Utica, 2% for wastewater, with the understanding that it could very likely be 0% wastewater for the next 5 years.
I agree with him 100%. I need to know, is that enough information to move on to the next step of this Prop 218, or do we still need to determine how we want to handle our commercial volumetric? Or can that kind of reveal itself during the process of the public outreach?
So we
Does
we
that
need
make
to select one of the scenarios in order to incorporate that into the notice.
I'm selecting scenario 1.
Yeah, I'm with scenario.
Okay,
I'm scenario 1 also.
perfect. Look at us making decisions. Whew. Should we take a break?
Wait, Scenario 1 is going to. You want to be here.
So I think there's
2 minutes great agenda items that are going
Voters.
to take a lot of time.
Go ahead.
I don't agree with,
Okay,
I'd be okay with scenario 1
okay,
if we kept it at the same, with residential, and understand it's gonna be $40,000.
So that's scenario
Scenario 2.
Well, I know that's scenario 2.
Okay, so
I
so my-
can't.
You're 4 to 1.
I can't,
4 to 1.
well, then it.
do we
it's
need a
fine.
motion
Let's-
to move forward on this, or do
You
we?
just gave direction.
We gave direction,
Yeah.
so I think there's 4 people saying scenario 1. Alvin, are you scenario 1?
I'm scenario 1.
Okay, so I think we're gonna move forward with scenario 1, and
So-
the 3%, the 6.22, and then the 2% on wastewater. And that's, just correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's the majority of this council to do the recommendation.
The last line.
The
The
way
very
we're-
last one.
the next steps one.
So just to clarify, with this direction from council, we can then move on to the next step, which is send Prop 218 notices.
Michael, you prepare them and
Okay?
Yes.
So
we're
I have
trying
a
to kinda
stupid question.
comment back.
What does a Prop 218 notice look like and what does it say? Because I don't want to answer my phone. I mean, I want to make sure that it says, let's go. You're going to get all kinds of
And
information.
I think we need a lot of good outreach.
Yes.
And
Well, that's,
But it
I
has to
know,
start.
I think that's a whole thing on its own.
So we can't do
I think
outreach
you have some
before we
professional
send the
guys in here that
notice?
do a lot of good outreach, maybe pick his brain.
Yes.
let's be
I would-
honest, if people don't get those notices, are they really gonna pay attention to outreach? I mean, look at our, this has been
I know.
on our agenda and we have
But-
2 members here, well, 4 members of the public. However, I know once we start this ball, obviously there's a whole process to it, but I think once these people get their notifications, then we're gonna hear from them. That's kind of inevitable.
Can I jump in one more time?
Yeah, what's it say?
Michael, can you help me clarify? Now that we have direction from council on 3% water, 6.22 Utica, 2% wastewater, will you help us develop the Prop 218 notices?
Yes, we will. That's really your main piece of public relations and explains the need for the rate increases and how the rates work. So we'll help you craft that notice, and we can go ahead and send it out, or we can bring it back to council to approve the notice before sending it.
I would like to see it.
I would like to see it.
Because I don't want it to appear like we're raising rates 11% or whatever the
Yeah.
263. Yeah. I think that people will get that and say, oh my gosh, my bill's going up 11%, and that's actually not.
So we could ask Michael to help develop the 218 notice, let legal review it, bring it back to you at the next council meeting for you to actually see the notice before it goes out.
Yes.
And that is what triggers the 45-day process, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we're looking at next council meeting to bring to you the notice that was developed by Michael, reviewed by staff, reviewed by the attorney's office for you to approve to trigger the 45-day.
Yes, thank you. Perfect. Okay, I'm going to take a quick break.
Thank you, Michael.
Thank you,
Thank
Michael.
you. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you,
Thank
Juana.
you, everybody.
Appreciate all your work on this one.
You have a
Thank
really
you,
good
guys.
temperament for this work.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Right.
Item B, this is the Utica Park Lightner Mine Expansion Project Update. Amy.
Mayor and council members, I'll make this brief. The fence has been completed around the new Lightner. The playground has been certified. The pavilion, by the time we see you on October 15th, will be really close to finished. And yes, those holes in the top are to become skylights. What you'll be seeing mostly in the coming weeks is grading near the playgrounds, the sidewalks, and removing that bulb out near the bathrooms, as well as finalizing the grading for the stage. You'll notice on the plans that we've relocated the gym equipment from, if you're looking at it, the right side of the playground to the left side. That's basically it. We've put in provisions for October 4th for the homecoming parade to let them do some staging there, but not beyond the fenced area. That's going to have to stay there, so they will not be able to turn around. So that's it, and up on the screen shows you where they moved the outdoor gym from the right side of the playground to the left side. Happy to answer any questions.
You know, Amy, we've been beaten up a whole bunch, or I've been beating myself up as I drive by there every morning, thinking about, could we open the playground for one Saturday and let the kids enjoy it? Then I thought, well, you know, I don't want Boyer to bring in portable fencing. Can we use that Orangeburg fencing? You know, how do we keep kids safe? And then I think to myself, I don't know, is it worth it to do it or not? I just think it's something that we can discuss.
Staff would be happy to make a recommendation.
What does staff think?
Staff would recommend that we open it up on at least one afternoon to thank the people who helped fund it and worked so hard on it, and have their kids be able to at least do a soft open.
And then put like Orangeburg fence across so the kids can't wander into the construction zone?
Once we get the ADA sidewalks in there in a couple weeks, we can fence off everything from basically we can arrange the fencing in a permanent manner. It's not like it would be open permanently. You don't really, and you'd be there supervising them. I think for a limited period of time.
And at no extra, Boyer wouldn't charge us to move fence, you don't think?
Yes, he will.
Yeah, he would.
I mean, you're gonna incur additional costs. My question is.
No, I don't know if about.
If they do the concrete, the 88 concrete that they have to do, is that the only concrete that's left on the project, or are there other walkways elsewhere that are gonna need to be done by Boyer's contract?
Yeah, there are other walkways, not in that area, although the stairs down do have to be done.
Right.
So this wouldn't be an open and keep it open. That's where you come into a problem.
Back to the concrete and the sidewalk. By us asking them to do this sidewalk to make it ADA compliant, is that something that they are now doing out of order instead of doing all of the concrete at one time?
No,
that doesn't make sense.
They were planning on doing that. Yeah.
So what is that?
And let's be honest, one of the contractors has kids who are ages 6 to 10. He's going to move the fence for us. I feel pretty confident I can convince him not to charge us extra.
So how, I guess I have a couple questions. One is, what's the contractor saying about opening the park?
Saying about
opening the park, doing.
No, again, not opening the park.
No, I understand that. I'm saying, so,
Temporary.
okay, park, playground.
Not a permanent opening.
Temporary.
This is a one-day thing. Do a soft opening. If you want it to be open for longer than that, then we can talk about that separately. This staff is only talking about a one-time thing.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, I still a no on that, and I just think, as the contractor, I'm assuming that they are responsible for delivering the park to us by a predetermined date, and if we do anything and cause any type of anything,
sure,
that's where I stand.
Your decision.
That was actually on my list, so I crossed it off. So I would be, and I think I said the other night, I would be fine with opening for one day. And my one thought is that community club that brought that forward. I know there are some people there that wanted to let their children play on it before they were older. So that, yeah, so that would be the only, I think, the one time that I would love to see it open. And there are some donors that would maybe even like to come and see it completed too.
And the property owners, yeah.
And I don't know if we need to make a huge to-do about it, but there are some people there that did a heck of a lot of work. So there's my 2 cents for the one time open if we want to do it. Let's take it.
I'm in agreement with that. One time.
What would be your thought on timeline? Obviously, you have to get the ADA sidewalk down and then move fence. Is it 2 weeks? Is it
3
6 weeks?
weeks-ish, sometime in third week of October.
So like in a week and a half, you might have a pretty good idea.
By the 15th, I'll have an excellent idea.
Okay, great.
But that's only if you want to direct to do that. If not, then we won't even.
Yeah.
Well, they're still gonna pour the concrete, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's still scheduled.
Yeah.
Not for tomorrow though, right? Well, when it's 103.
They're actually going to be working on it through, no, they're going to be doing the grading for it though.
I was down there today and it's a construction zone.
Yeah.
There's a lot of work that needs to be done before I would envision parading some kids around for a day or half of a day. I think maybe a little bit more progress needs to be made.
Have we talked to the building inspector or the fire marshal about the potential of opening it and what that would look like? I assume we can't just say open it and that.
So basically, the main thing for getting ADA is to have that safety certification, which we received yesterday. We have the playground itself is safe to be on the playground. So basically walking 20 feet from the parking area to the playground is the main thing you would be concerned about.
Which is what you're wanting to resolve in the next 2 weeks with the sidewalk.
So you're saying, sorry, just to clarify, so you're saying the building inspector and fire marshal don't have to say?
They
We
do
already
not,
got that.
they have not expressed concern. I've talked to Nate about it. And I've confirmed with our building inspector, I'll triple check with him, but he basically deferred to the safety inspector for the playground. If you're going to open it to the public, you need to have ADA.
How are you gonna regulate the public not being allowed in?
Well, and that's kind of where I'm going is, you know, people that open businesses are subject to, they can't just have an open house one day and ask for a one-day opening without going through guidelines and processes and being told what those hoops are to jump through. So we should be held to the same accountability. And I don't think we should go out of that line of that train of thought. If it's not ready to be open, we shouldn't be out there. It's a construction zone. Moving the fence, doing more work, I think maybe we can have that conversation, but for right now, I think we're putting the cart before the horse. That's what I think. So do we want to make that decision right now and give her the direction? Because it sounds like there's two of us saying no, and then she could bring it back on the 15th.
I don't know, I'll give direction. I think we are following those rules fire marshal's good, it's been signed off. The only thing we have left to do is ADA to allow people into that one area for one day, because I don't want to start moving fencing day in and day out. I don't want to start doing things, and this would be an invite only, I'm assuming, for me.
Who are we inviting and how?
I'm only wanting to invite the Angels Camp Community Club that sponsored and got the money for that play structure. For me, that's who, and if they want to include, because there were some donors that donated some money, if they wanted to include some of the donors or who they thought, that for me is what I'm doing. I'm doing that group of community club members that, I assume you have the name and numbers,
So you're doing
and
like
what.
like a show and tell, like a.
It's something that they sponsored and put
How
up.
are you
It's
going
just
to
like,
regulate that somebody driving by doesn't pull in? Are you going to say like, do you have an invitation? Are you on a list? How are you going to regulate that?
No, let them come.
and it's then you're talking like an hour or a half an hour, 45 minutes. I'm not talking open all day. I'm talking from 10 to 11. Please come with your kids and be a part of the park.
And then at the end of that day, then the fence gets put back, like
Yes.
not a week later. I mean,
No, like
I think it
sand.
needs to be coordinated in a way that it then gets closed right back. Otherwise,
My only thing is you have a really good group of people that put together some stuff. Whether it was like Friends of the Fair that got the booth built out there, and then there's a little grand opening for all those people that helped. Or I mean, I think that's what you're doing. You're just doing it in the park rather than not showing off the bathrooms, but or you know what I mean. So and I think that's what you're doing. You're showing something off for those people that put in a lot of time and money.
I think it's
what
appropriate.
you're saying, and I agree with that, but I would feel more comfortable doing that. Like we do that Friday and the park officially opens on Saturday, as opposed to just like a random day in October and then the park doesn't open till whatever. But we're all entitled to our opinion.
Well, how about this? How about I throw out, will you contact the community club and see what they would like
If
to do?
there's been any interest.
Or have they already contacted you?
They have contacted me and have indicated that they would be interested in that.
Well, of course, who wouldn't be interested in that?
So, well, I'm trying to.
It was more of a thank you. It's not a critical thing. It was just more of a thank you type thing.
So if you're looking for direction from staff, I'm gonna open it for the hour or so and regulate it and close her back up.
Were you thinking like a couple hours or, 2 hours max?
So can we at least make sure that Boyer will move the fence and no additional charges, and then put the fence back at the end of the hours? And
I'd like to see that in writing from
I would like to make sure that there's not going to be any expenditures. In writing would be good, just so that it's not like a miscommunication, a potential misunderstanding.
And that this in no way means that it's a final project opening.
No.
Steve, what are your thoughts on this?
I do have thoughts on this. I would prefer not to open the park. I drive by that park every day. I stop and talk to the people working, particularly in the area of the playground. Unless there's significant changes between now and the middle to the end of October, I'm not at all comfortable with people being in there.
I'd like to thank you for saying that, because I think, Amy, you just said staff recommendation was different than that. So I think we need to clarify staff recommendation when it is staff. So I think we need to
Personal recommendation based upon the
That's
Angels Camp Community Club asking.
Thank you.
To have that.
Thank you for the clarification.
I would like to add, though, that it would be possible, as a thank you to those that have donated and been involved in the project for I don't know how long, much longer than I've been here. It's very possible, I think, to clean up that area, whether Boyer moves the, I can move the fence.
I can
mean,
move
it's
the
just,
fence.
Okay.
If we're talking about opening it for,
That makes me more nervous.
It's not
than
about
anybody
moving
can
it,
just
it is,
move the fence.
the contractor has the right and the obligation and the liability of that construction zone. And if we arbitrarily, if I go down there and say, I'm the mayor and I'm moving this fence because I want to have a picnic right here, I don't have the opportunity to do that. So we shouldn't be looking at it that way. Boyer owns that area and he has an obligation to fulfill his contract. So I don't think it's about
who us as a completed.
Yeah, so I actually kind of don't like the mentality of anybody could move the fence. Anybody could go move in a fence, but it's not right and it's not contractual. So.
yeah, I mentioned moving the fence because we talked about having it in writing and making it no cost. The fence moving is not an issue for me. What's an issue for me is the state of that area, that side of the park right now. I'm not at all comfortable with kids or parents or me or anyone being out there. It could be cleaned up and it could be smoothed out and it could be made safe within the next 2 or 3 weeks. So it could happen.
Sure.
I'm basing it on what I see right now, every day when I drive out there. By November 1st, we could make an effort to, smooth it and clean it and remove some of the hazards and make it open for 1 hour or 2 hours for a certain number of people. I might be more comfortable with it then, but I'm not comfortable with it right now.
No, let's see, we get in a couple
Maybe
weeks.
revisit it on the 15th?
Yeah, let's see, we get in a couple weeks.
And maybe it'll start raining, and we won't have to worry about it. Can't get out there.
Okay, any other comments on the park or questions? It doesn't look like we have any public comment. Is there anyone even online anymore, Rose? Okay, I will open and close public comment. And we will move on to the next item. We've removed item C, so item D is the preliminary fiscal year 23-24 financial performance report. Michelle?
Yes. The slide there. So I wanted to give you an overview. We have preliminary numbers. We're getting ready to begin the audit for this year on October 21st. We'll begin the audit. And so I wanted to give you an overview of revenue, looking at revenue versus expenses, mainly focusing on our general fund, water, wastewater. So this first graph will show you the percentage of revenue that comes in based on the different funds. Of course, our general fund is the largest. Then we have our sewer, water funds. Our other special revenue funds, that would be any type of grants or funds that we have outside of the transportation fund. This scenario of revenue doesn't include any of our fiduciary accounts because those are considered separate, and just like in the financial statements, they're presented separately. It doesn't include anything in terms of our park fund. That's not included. So we're just looking at operating day-to-day for our projects, our transportation, and then our enterprise versus our general fund. So overall, based on the budget that we had ending June 30th of 24, we did generate $66,000 more in revenue than we had budgeted for the overall. If you go to the next page, you'll see that breakdown. So I know we've gone back and forth and wanted to look at things based off of tax revenue. So this is breaking out our different tax revenue. This is the monies that these go into the general fund. And so based on, you can see the different of how we performed to budget. Pretty close where we exceeded some additional franchise fees. TOT did very well. Sales tax was just a little above budget. Property tax was a little under. Bradley Burns, that's another sales tax that comes in, was under what we had budgeted for the year. That was the one that had the greatest discrepancy from budget, but because some others performed a little better, we ended up with a positive in terms of our revenue to budget.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
What's the Bradley Burns tax?
So that it is part of sales tax.
Okay.
It's 1%. So actually, when we're looking at our projections for sales tax for Measure A, we were using Bradley Burns for that projection. So it's off of actuals.
So for then this next fiscal year that we're in now, do we have to make any adjustments because we didn't estimate?
Perform the budget. So we actually go off of actuals when we're projecting our budget.
Okay.
So it just happened to be at this time in the budgeting, we had projected Bradley Burns as a little bit higher. Part of that was because we'd never broken it out before. It was always lumped together with sales tax. And so I think last year was the first year that we had broken it out, and that might have been just the first year. So the revenue projections for this year might have been a little bit higher, just because it was a new tax that we were breaking out between the two. But we go off of actuals, and I look at a 3-year average of that and look at that increase or decrease in trending. And then I also look at the most recent data. So when we were preparing the budget, that was all in April or March of this year. I already had a good portion of this data already knowing that we were going to come under budget for the Bradley Burns. So.
And so you use this current number to build next year's budget, correct?
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then the rate revenue is with our water and sewer projects. And so we have looking at, this is just the operating, sewer operating, very close to budget. Interest, of course, we know we earned more interest than what we had originally budgeted or projected. And then the same thing in water. We were very close to budget. And then you can see most of our additional income there was in interest.
So on the sewer interest, will that disappear once we start allocating that money towards CIP, because it's not just going to be sitting in a bank?
So the sewer interest is not allocated to CIP. It's in a reserve that we can use for whatever the council determines.
But the interest comes from the big pot of money that's sitting in the bank.
Correct. Yes.
So when that pot of money goes away, we won't have interest coming off.
Correct. And so every year when we're budgeting, we're going to look to see that. So like even in this year, because we had capital projects that we knew we would be spending revenue, we estimated interest to be much lower. And also looking at the economy and interest rates and projecting, we wanted to have a very conservative approach. But the money that was earned in this year, that's where I was talking about. It stays, it's in the reserve. It is money that you can use to offset certain things like improving the CAP program or offsetting commercial increases with the volumetric. So those are things we can talk about, but we did generate more than we had projected, and there was no budget in terms of, we budgeted for this revenue, but it was still showing as a profit, like over expense. So there was nothing designated for it. And we're fairly new to earning money, so before we brought in very little, 30,000, and we went up to $1 million. So citywide. So that's all new. Then looking at the other side, the expense, you can see our expense by fund, same as the revenue. And our city performed compared to the budget. So expenses remained under budget, so we were conservative in our spending, and the general fund was 600,000 under the projected budget, and the water fund was 225, and the wastewater fund was 450 under budget. Some of that is, looking at we didn't accomplish all of the capital projects in that piece that we had planned for the year, but really the general fund was just we have reductions in salaries, positions that were unfilled, or maybe people didn't use all the benefits that a big portion of this is in salaries, but also in operating. We're pretty lean on the operating. We try to, we try to keep regular operating costs low. We're, looking at ways to save money in terms of changing out, having like our copier lease program we did last year. We saved quite a bit of money by looking at what that was costing us and switching those out to newer models but more efficient. And then just in general, if we're doing projects or certain things with consultants, you know, we didn't spend all of the consultant revenue or estimated expense. So we did have some savings in the year. And then we can look at right here, expense to budget in our funds, in our major funds that we were looking at there, and see how they perform. So the general fund was under budget. Sewer, all of them we had performed. Other revenue funds, you want those to equal out because that's usually your grant money or you know, funding special revenue. So you're pretty much getting the money and spending 100% of it, so it should be a wash.
So Michelle, are they not, when you budget, like in sewer at, you know, $2.1 million and you only spend 1.7, does that have something to do with no projects on the books, or, and sewer probably wasn't probably the best example, but does the consultants and Chris, do they know what their budget is?
Oh.
And then do they give you a budget back to match that amount? And are they not spending it, or what? How does that work?
So all of our consultants, we have contracts when they're under contract, and we're setting up open purchase orders for the year based off of what the budget is.
Okay.
And we monitor the spending through that, so that we're not going to go over the purchase order amount, which matches the budgeted amount. But a lot of this is savings and salaries. There was a lot of understaffing in the enterprise funds, and so we saw a significant decrease in the staffing and salaries.
Okay.
And then there's some things where you'll estimate, you know, chemicals, and maybe they ended up not using what they had used in the previous year, or, you know, and so we do, when we're building the budget, I start off with giving the department heads a projection of where I think they'll end at that year. And so we're, you know, I'm projecting the last quarter, last 3 to 4 months. And then they're going to come back to me, and we work together one-on-one. Like, what do you see? What are your additional? Do you have any special testing that you have to do? Any special projects? And so we're building this together before we even bring it to the city administrator. So, you know, we're looking at actuals and spending and trending.
So what trends and what's going to be new? Because there are going to be certain expenses on an annual basis.
Yeah.
And then you got to factor in cost of living, like for fuel and things like that.
And a big piece too that we've been cleaning up in the last couple of years is just with IT. We've been spending more in IT and software, but it wasn't really being allocated properly. And so we've really cleaned up in the last couple of years those allocations, and they've been reflected through the budget, so that now they're budgeting for those additional, you know, you have a IT consultant, and even though you may never call for support because you have a laptop or because you have a tablet, there's a cost per month for having them on call and for their regular server maintenance and whatnot. It gets allocated out. So it's being fairly charged also. Where before, I think it just all went into administration. So, and then we can go on to the next slide. This was interesting. I wanted to list the expense by department, and I had it ranked from the largest down to the smallest of the expense. So it's just taking the same numbers and ranking that, so you can see who has the larger budget and largest expense for the city, and then how that factors down. Then of course city officials, we have very minimal through there. And then the other thing in there, sorry for my typo, revenue versus expense by department. So you can see all of the tax revenue comes through admin and finance. But what I like about this graph is that when you're looking at like public works, police, fire, those are special revenue, those are special funds that they've gone outside of to bring in to enhance their department and their program. So, you know, it could be either with like TOT, or it could be with like Prop 172. There might be a safety grant or a, you know, a cannabis grant, you know. So they're bringing these revenues in, and those are the special revenues. So you could kind of see with this graph what they generate to help support them. And of course, we're going to see fire jump as soon as we get Measure A, because Measure A would fall under fire. And then you have the revenue, that big long blue line under admin, but that really goes back in to support all of those departments in our community. So it covers that, all of those costs. So it was an interesting perspective. So overall, we exceeded our revenue budget by $66,000. We know we had savings in our operating expenses. Overall, the city, we maintained a strong financial position, and there were no major concerns about overspending from what the council had approved in the budget for that year.
Perfect.
Nice job.
That's great. That's a very
Thank you.
well put together report. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll open public comment for any public comment on this item. And I will close public comment. Anybody have any final comments or questions for Michelle? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item E, and that is investment options for the CD that expires at the end of the year and the future portfolio for the city. Michelle.
Correct, yeah. So we do have the CD, but we also wanted to look at building a portfolio for the city, something that would still meet our investment policy and be safe and secure, but that we could have it managed by a third party. And that they could look at some different opportunities, much like the county does with Chandler. They use Chandler. So we did reach out to Chandler. And then we also reached out to the Bank of Stockton, and we looked at another option that was through our insurance, the CSJVR. I always have to get that one. And so that was really ruled out because the insurance one put us into a pool that went back into our insurance policy, and it was just not something where we wanted to be what we were looking for. There was no managed portfolio. It was only reinvesting back into that insurance pool, and that really wasn't what we wanted to do. Then speaking with Chandler, they were very competitive. They are very sound. People are very happy with working with Chandler. The problem is we don't have the money to invest like the county does. So the county gets a one-on-one. They come out, they meet with them, they design this portfolio. It's a personal approach. What they could offer for us for what we were looking at investing, if it's under 20 million, you get put into a pool. You have no say over the investments, but they're sound and they meet your policy. And then quarterly, you have an online session where they give you an update on how it's performing. It's not a bad option, but we really felt like what Bank of Stockton had to offer was they met with us one-on-one several times, came in, they have a team there that this is what they do. They were able to look at our policy, look at different options, and put together a portfolio that was just as competitive as Chandler, but they're going to be there monitoring it, and we're going to have that one-on-one relationship similar to what the county has with Chandler, where you have somebody managing that portfolio. We've always had a very good banking relationship with Bank of Stockton. They've done very well for us. So I thought that was only better to continue to build that relationship. So what they are offering us, there was a summary sheet here. So we would be still looking at a deal. I believe our CD currently, it ends in December. It's at 5.1, currently in LAIF, so that's with the state. I did contact the LAIF to see how much do we have to leave in there as a minimum, and there is no minimum balance. You can take it all out, but they suggested leaving a little bit because then you keep the account open, and it's a pain if we were in the future wanting to go back and reinvest in LAIF. We would have to go through the process of setting it up. So they said, leave something in there, it doesn't matter, you can have $100 in here, and we'll leave the account open, there's no charge. Life is currently earning, I think it's 4.2%. And so this would be a better option for us. So what I am proposing now is to look at taking some of the money out of Life and leaving a smaller balance in there, and putting it into a portfolio and seeing how that performs. We also have that $10 million CD that's earning 5.1, and that's only, they could only guarantee us that rate through December. We can, you know, see what they have to offer with that, and if it's better, if it's, you know, still above 5, we could just roll it into another CD. That's not a problem. Or we could split it and maybe put $5 million in the CD and take the other 5 and invest it in the portfolio. Our policy does not have, we can invest out a longer period of time. Right now, we're just vesting 6 to 12 months. And then the other money is pretty liquid in the money market account. So in the money market account, we have about $8 million. In the CD, which is still pretty liquid, we have $10 million. In Life, we have almost $7 million. So we can take a lot of this and lock some of that up longer term. Yes, we have our CIP.
Yeah, this is
identified
gonna affect our CIP.
We have that 5-year program, but what we're looking at investing and what that CIP is going to be costing. These funds here are within that. This portfolio is 3 to 5 years is what we would be looking at in terms of an investment, and that we could then and also in terms of the liquidity. If you scroll, you can see down there the different risk, and a lot of this portion would also be high. So we can also frame this using that CIP and projecting out what do we have.
What year you're going to need.
What are we going to need this for? Okay. Since we are determining that pay-go. But it would be nice to establish something like this because I don't think the money market or the CD rates are going to hold up.
Right.
And I think our money market's at 4.2% right now. So even taking, you know, some of the money market, some of in Life, but I think we would still be keeping it liquid enough to meet our time frame for our CIP projects, but then having a better return by you know, doing something more so in this portfolio.
So then you're going to take that list of CIP projects and the date that we hope for completion and not add that money in to
right, to
one
make
of these,
sure that it's available.
where it's available.
Yeah.
Okay. Did they tell you how many of the investments are going to be stronger than A rated? I mean, are they looking to all of them are going to be A, or can we?
We can definitely diversify, yeah, and because they had talked here. Let me see where that was at. They said that it wouldn't be any less than an A rating.
Right, anything less.
Right, but there would be different investments, and I can get, you know, more detail from them on what we're looking at as we go through and pick and choose for the portfolio.
I think it's good to stay local.
Yep.
I've had a lot of experience with Chandler, but if they're not going to just manage our portfolio, it's not worth joining Chandler and having take our money and throw it in with everyone else's money. Do you feel comfortable with the maturity dates that they're suggesting and things like that?
I do, yeah. I definitely think we'll be able to. And one thing they did assure me, yes, even though we have a medium liquidity, they were saying it's pretty easy to be able to pull that out.
To pull the money out.
Yeah, at any time. Because that was a big concern.
Right.
And the security. And I know with our money that we have in our money market and part of earning our account and the amount that we're way over the FDIC insurance, they have taken out special bonds and insurance policies just for us. So they make sure that they're well covered. Good. So because they want to earn our money in our business. Right. And so they make sure there's special. And so every time I'm looking at investing, you know, like when we were originally setting up the CD for $10 million, you know, we met with the vice president down from Modesto that he came up and he was like explaining that and talking about how, you know, he wanted to get an idea of how much numbers, because then he had to go out and get the bond and, you know, make sure that they were able to cover everything. So everything is secure.
Okay, I'm going to quickly open public comment and close public comment, and then bring it back for any final questions. We're just looking for conversation and direction, or yeah, I think you're on to the right path.
Yeah, the
local.
policy we adopted allows the treasurer, which is myself, to go ahead, but I want to keep the council updated. I have the treasury report I give you monthly, and then to talk about these opportunities, just to see if you see anything or know of anything different. So, thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to item F. This is to approve resolution 24-79, which is the revision of our fee schedule for the fiscal year 24-25. Michelle.
Yes. So annually, we review the city's fees, and I work with Amy and Caitlin because a good portion of what they do is affected in the fees. Now, part of the fee increase is based on the California Construction
Cost Index.
Cost Index. In past, it had, I think right after COVID, jumped like 13%, and we chose to do an average. We brought it here and talked about averaging. It stayed consistent right around 9%. This year, it's 9.4%, the increase. And then we also look at the CPI, and that is at 3.2%. So for things like more so in the individual departments, public works, administration fees, police and fire, those have only increased by the 3.2%. Anything related to the construction and building and planning and road fees, that we use the actually the CCCI,
The 9
Construction.
California Construction Cost Index. I know.
Which is the 9.4.
Which is the 9.4, the big one. It didn't pay to average it over the last 3 years because you're factoring in that 13%, the 9.4 was the lower. And so we went ahead and used that. And so we apply that to all of the current fees. So we had our fee schedule from last year, and then we apply that factor, and then we'll increase the fees by that amount.
That's typically what we've done in the past.
Yeah. Last 3 years I've been a part of it. That's what we've done.
And so how are we compared to the county, our neighboring counties, city of Sonora, on these fees?
That is the table on the right.
Those are fees, or those are
I'm gonna make it bigger right now, Amy.
There we go. So basically, if you were to come in and buy and pull a building permit for a single-family residence of approximately 2,000 square feet, except for Calaveras County, for some reason they figure theirs based on a 1,400. The bottom line there are the actual building and impact mitigation fees you would have to pay for, along with your building permit. And Angels Camp, 48,500. Calaveras County, 30,700, Sonora, 34,166, Amador County, 70,192, Tuolumne County, 37,101. The main reason we are higher than Calaveras County, Sonora, Tuolumne County, two things. One is our school impact mitigation fees are significantly higher than they are for the other jurisdictions. And our traffic impact mitigation fee is significantly higher than other jurisdictions. Since I've been here, I've been suggesting we need to re-examine that traffic impact mitigation fee. Whenever we compare it to other jurisdictions, ours is always higher. I think our list of improvements needs to be revisited. Hasn't been revisited since 2016, and we may want to make that a priority to update that impact mitigation fee.
So that money that's collected on the traffic impact mitigation, is that kept separate
separate
for,
fund.
and that's what we use for potential road improvements?
Why are we, as the City of Angels, paying $10,000 for the schools, but if you live in Copper or if you live in Murphy's, like you're still in the same school district, why are they not paying?
The higher of the two is from Mark Twain Elementary School.
For the district?
No, they're split though, it's 60-40, right? So if you're in the Mark Twain School District, Mark Twain gets 60%, Bret Harte gets 40.
Okay, so basically, we have a percentage from Mark Twain Elementary School.
Right.
We have a percentage from Bret Harte. You combine them, and it's a charge per square foot.
Right, exactly.
Right. And
Exactly.
so for us, that comes out to $10,541.63.
For a 2,000 square foot house.
Right. I don't know about the 60/40.
Well, it's split.
Oh, okay.
And I have a question for you about
And
that.
why Calaveras County is so much lower, I will say they do not update their fees frequently. Same with Sonora. Amador and Tuolumne are a little bit better about that, but Calaveras County and Sonora do tend to.
But Amy, the county doesn't establish the mitigation, the housing mitigation fees, it's the school district.
It is.
And they have to do a study.
Correct.
And right now, you know, in this county, unless something changes, they're just doing level 1. So I don't understand why those level 1 fees are so much different unless the square footage of the house. This is all still based on 2,000 square feet.
Calaveras is off of
Calaveras is based on
1,400.
1,400.
Ours is off of a 2,000.
Right,
Still
but-
$6,000 difference.
But I'm sure those are all level 1 fees.
So.
Because unless you're in a growth, you can't charge more than level 1 unless you can demonstrate why.
So they have not updated theirs since 2019. So it
I mean,
is,
Calaveras hasn't gone through a study.
hasn't, right. And so basically what I did, given the amount of time we had to put this together, was we went through their housing element of their general
Okay,
plan.
okay.
And this particular one in Calaveras County that broke down one of their fees was from 2019. So if those fees have been raised significantly, and they have been, I do believe they've gone up in the last 6 months.
Okay.
They would not be reflected in Calaveras counties. So that 4480 may in fact be higher.
Okay.
And they did not adjust it because this is a 2019 fee.
So Michelle, do we charge an admin fee for handling the mitigation fees for the school districts? Do you collect the money? You
collect the
personally
money.
collect them? No.
We collect the money, when the construction is completed, we send those.
You send the check
To the school district.
to the school district?
To Mark Twain and Bret Harte.
Which-
We keep them separate, we have funds for
Right,
each.
right.
And it's accounted for, but basically, we keep the money until the construction is complete, and then we send that off.
Okay, so you don't charge any handling fee for that?
No.
Could you legally charge?
I don't know if we could.
You know, I am not aware of somebody charging it.
Because it used to be the funds would go to Calaveras County and they'd cut the checks. And then it moved to the city. That's just a thought.
It's not a big impact in terms of.
No.
It's not, you know, Caitlin keeps track of that when the construction closes, she, you know.
Right, it's not like,
it's
well, when
not-
you do, I mean, I don't know how it's gonna work with Habitat. Are they each gonna be paying $10,000 per house for the school?
This is for a market rate, 2,000 square foot. When you go and ask the schools for a reduction for affordable housing in the past, they have not been open to that. I don't know if they will be open to that for Habitat, but we have no influence.
Okay, and but these are numbers that we're approving tonight, the Angels Camp.
Or these still have to
Are
go up
these
9%.
All of this is before the 9.4%.
Wow.
Who sets the school numbers of 10?
The school.
You have to
The school
you do a
They
study.
do
So we have no,
You have no control
we
over
have
that.
no control over the 10,000, but we do have a control over the 11,122 of the
Yes.
traffic.
Yes.
And the water and sewer, I would assume.
Yes.
Because we've done a study.
So on the traffic mitigation, can we talk about that? So it looks like on average, people are paying about $4,500, except for Amador, which is on a really different track than everyone else. But, so why is ours so, ours is the highest out of everyone?
because we did a study in 2016 and we have a very extensive list of capital improvements, including traffic signals, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And unlike some of these other, well, a couple of these people do not do cost of living adjustments as well.
Okay.
So we have a super expensive list.
Do we have a big pile of money for traffic?
We haven't done any.
These are only for new single-family residences.
Okay.
So until we have new single-family residences, we do not.
So when people
But
say
maybe this is
cheaper-
why we don't attract new
Right,
buildings,
right.
is because
Why
our
we
fee, that is
don't.
exactly
Right.
why. I've heard many people have said to me, it's too expensive to build in the city, and I guess I've never seen this
So-
before, and it is,
So, but
other than Amador.
a single, like in Greenhorn or Angels Oaks, I mean, we must have some money in that fund.
In the
Right.
traffic impact
Yes.
mitigation, yes, we do.
And this is based on that study. So in order for us to lower that, would we have to enter into another study, or can we say, we're gonna cut that amount in
You need to
half?
update the study. You must always have a nexus study done when you set the fee.
Yep. And that's what our city engineer does, or does it,
No, you usually hire a consultant.
and how much is that?
Mhm.
Do you think?
It's in the 5 figures, usually. 10s, 20s.
I'd really like to get this number down. I don't know if
So,
anyone
yeah.
else sits in that place with me, but this is, like, do we need to do a fire one? Because now we have Measure A. Do we need to collect quite so much for parks? Like, I don't know.
I mean, nobody else collects
What
for
are we doing
police.
with that?
So,
Right, but they don't
there's a
have the
caveat,
clout.
there's a
The county
caveat.
does, they have the sheriff.
See, you'll
So no one's
notice
gonna tell
that there's a
people.
county city services line there, and it's 0 for us, and it's 0 for Calaveras County. But Sonora and Amador and Tuolumne all have numbers.
Oh, for traffic. Is that what you're talking about?
No,
Or
I'm
for
county
enforcement?
city services.
County
That
city.
covers parks, police, fire, those things. We do
Oh,
not charge.
Here,
Yeah.
0, 0.
Okay, so all those fees are combined for them then?
Yes.
Okay.
Whereas for us, we break them all
Oh,
out. So
okay,
those are not exorbitant numbers.
okay.
Look at Amador County on their parks
Yeah.
compared to us.
Right.
So we, and
So
then,
water, ooh,
go ahead.
no, go ahead. I'm just looking at water with the second highest again.
So water and sewer is, when people hook up, it's almost $18,000 for a
Yep.
water and sewer hookup,
Yes.
correct?
Yes.
And that's because,
That's our capital improvements, and they're based on that and our growth rate.
and our
Our growth rate,
growth
you
rate.
have to, yeah, just like, I assume they do it the same as traffic.
And so they take, and is that because of a study, or is that was because of a study also?
Yes.
What would fall under the miscellaneous?
The miscellaneous is on footnote B. It's sewer and water deposits, utility account processing, and meter installation for water.
So that's not obviously part of the CIP water sewer?
No, it's
Probably like.
Separate fee.
The first two are more like infrastructure. You're
Gotcha.
investing in the infrastructure of the city.
Do they actually, I mean, I get it, but are those dollars actually being invested in the infrastructure and they're improving because we've added one meter? I mean, it just seems like,
those top two have nothing to do with the meter.
Right.
right,
Those
it
are
just
all
has,
capital
just the
improvements.
just capital improvements.
Right.
But they're not running I mean, are they actually running a line? What are they,
It's all what's
No.
forecasted to do.
This is all for
The impact?
new development. We're putting in a new sewer line at Booster Way. Where did that money come from?
Right.
Right.
These fees on new.
right, so if I'm sorry, but if I purchased a lot in the city and there were meters on both sides of the vacant lot, water and sewer, I would assume, were in the road. It would still cost
Yes,
that much money
Yes.
without any additional infrastructure
correct.
needed.
You're looking at future infrastructure, yes.
Upkeep of the lines,
How many-
maintenance for
How
years.
many
The
new
capital
homes do we
improvement
have
fund.
on average per year? How many new homes are we
Right,
closing,
We have-
like we're collected fees for
we
each
had
year?
4 last year.
Okay.
Is any of this money that's put on deposit that some gets given back if it's not, like, for example, building permit fee, 5,000, we're a little high across the board. Is some of that, if you don't have as many inspections or as many effort, does some of that get given back, or is it a flat fee of 5,037?
It's based on the valuation of the house. So very expensive houses tend to have
They get more than
higher
that.
building permit fees. This number you have right here is actually for a house in Greenhorn Creek.
Right. Okay, so this is just an example, a snapshot.
I asked her for a
It's-
house in
it's
Greenwood Creek in
ridiculous.
2000
It's
square feet.
ridiculous.
Put shovel in the ground.
Because Angel Oaks has a totally different thing for
Angel Oaks is
sewer.
different.
Right.
So that's why I said just pick Greenhorn, because Greenhorn also has lots available for building.
Right.
So it's like ready to go.
So this wouldn't be a good example for Habitat because
No,
it's not a
No,
Greenhorn. I got you.
because we have made, again, like with your rate study, there's a different rate structure for affordable housing.
So we're talking about 4 houses. I want to see how we can maybe draw more people in. The more people we have to pay for infrastructure, the better, right? So if we can get some more houses on the docket. I mean, building, we can't control building costs. That's, wood costs what it costs and what have you. But I'd like to see some changes in our structure here and how much we're charging. And I don't even know where to start
And
with
if I
that.
were to start with this in front of us tonight, are we, a lot like what we just talked about with our rates going forward, is this a recommendation of a not to exceed 9%, anywhere up to 9%, or are you recommending this 9%
This was
increase?
a decision made back in 2019 that we would annually use the California Construction Cost Index.
Not
period.
up to, okay.
No, it's not an up to, or you get to choose. This is what it is. We once came to you and asked for an average because it was around 80%.
So Amy, how do you define affordable housing? Is it based on income, and can we set that criteria, or has it already been established?
The state of California
Sets
establishes.
a
Yes, what
Based-
the median is, and then you're either a certain percentage of median income, area median income, and you're, for a family of 4, family of 3, family of 2, tells you exactly
So
how
it could
much
be
gross.
$60,000 or $70,000 a year?
It's closer to 90, believe it or not, for affordable housing in
It's-
many cases, yeah.
And so if we have someone come in who makes less than $90,000, then we look at reducing these fees then for them?
You have to have an affordable housing project in which you have recorded covenants that say you will only be selling to people with these income levels.
And so do we make that information available to people who are pulling permits in case they fall within that, in case they fall within that?
It's not an affordable housing development.
No, I mean,
It doesn't
just
go
one
off,
house.
it doesn't go off your salary though, it doesn't go off how much you make.
No, if you're building a house, you're assumed to be market rate unless you are in a subdivision or you are willing to record a covenant on your property saying that I will maintain this level of affordability for that house for, they just raised it to 55 years. It used to be 30. Yeah. And I don't know if it's helpful or not, but in dealing with commercial, I've only had comments made about the traffic impact mitigation.
It's pretty horrendous.
It gets,
So
it's
how much
more of
of
an
that,
impact, right? So yeah.
how much of this can we change? Because we're going off the study, right, that you have. You can't change anything without the next
So
study.
Tonight,
That's a
you're
5 figure.
only doing your.
Right, the
annual
9 or
income.
3 or.
And I would recommend that staff is directed to update the traffic impact mitigation fee. That's your main one.
But
That's
can we do that without doing a whole study?
You can, tonight, you can make your adjustments.
Right.
And you can direct
Make a
staff to
recommendation.
look into adjusting that traffic impact mitigation fee.
And these are adjustments for next fiscal year, or
No.
what time of year? This isn't this odd time
They
of year
would be
to do it?
effective October 1st, I believe.
Yesterday? As
Yes.
of yesterday?
Well, we
Today,
won't
what's
charge,
today?
we can't charge them until you guys adopt them.
Until you adopt it.
I see.
And then I'm not sure
I
if there's a
don't know.
30-day after that or not.
So your resolution cites 2 master fees, one from 2012 and then the revised master fee schedule from 2019. Those were done by consultants.
Can we not?
I'm of the opinion that we don't act on this tonight at all, and instead we go back to the drawing board and get some new fee studies going. But quickly, I'm gonna open public comment and see if there's any public comment. Seeing none, I'm going to close public comments. I didn't forget to do that and bring it back. Mike, what you got?
I think we need to look at traffic, and I think we need to look at water and sewer. We have no control over the schools.
No, the school is fine. I mean,
Right.
We have
I
no
don't
control.
understand why families that are building in Copper and Vallecito, or whoever's feeding into our schools, is not paying the same fee. That's weird to me.
Wouldn't that all kind of come out in a fee study?
Do the whole thing and then divide it by the schools, right?
No, because Copper's not within the city limits. So
Right,
they're
but why
within the
would, but
county
they're
rate.
part of our school district.
I don't understand. I'm not doubting what Amy has done here, but I can't imagine, because Copper has, or Mark Twain is doing level 1, and
Yeah.
Barnard's doing level 1.
Right.
The county must be collecting more money
They
there
have to,
somehow.
because it goes
They
all the way
gotta
to
be.
Bear Valley. Like,
They
I
have,
don't understand
they
that.
have to be. Maybe Calaveras Unified isn't.
Can I add something to that? Our school fee is based on something we did last year, I think, right? Or within the last.
No, we don't do anything with school fees.
No, what I'm saying is, what you're seeing for Angels Camp, the $48,000 total, including the $10,500 for the school, is based on an actual case in Greenhorn Creek.
Right.
How long
Right.
ago?
3 months.
3 months ago.
Right.
Right.
What you're seeing for Calaveras County is 1,400 square feet versus 2,000 square feet for
Maybe
something
from
that was
last
done
year.
in 2019,
Yes.
Okay.
5 years
Okay.
ago.
Yes.
So it might not be this much of a discrepancy.
Correct.
Yes.
All right. It would be
So-
interesting to know what the updated number is. But anyway, I don't mind the school one. I love the way that our schools are set up. Actually, with the funding, it's great. But all the other fees, I'd like, to revisit. I feel like if we've been raising it 10% almost every year, that's a lot. Yes, Amy?
So,
I was going to give you some context as to what that might cost. Our county service impact mitigation fee, if you will, our parks, police, fire, blah, blah, blah. And I see where we might need to update the fire because conditions have changed. Parks, police are actually within the ballpark. If you look at the county services fee, we're below the others.
that's what I was saying, it's 3,158.
For
3310.
those items.
If you take this 403, 616, 413, and the 1726, you come up to 3,158.
Right, so we're really
We're, yeah.
the fact that the county does not do that, my suspicion is, I don't know if they have special districts and it's coming through as a property tax to raise money for your libraries and your such, I don't know. Perhaps one of you knows.
I mean, how do they pay for the sheriff's department?
How do they pay for the sheriff's department? I have no idea. Again, the main thing that is way out of line is that traffic impact mitigation fee.
It's completely out of line.
And
Even Amador is not charging.
No, it is. And it's gonna be like water and wastewater. We've collected all this money, and how much have we done?
Well,
What are the traffic?
I mean, you've only, how many homes did you say, Amy?
Four.
So you've only collected $1,600 for the police department last year. It's not, I mean, you're not talking gobs of money now, yeah.
But how long has that mitigation fee been in existence? At over $10,000?
oh, it wasn't when it was originally adopted. Before it was going up, I think it was 7 or 8. This is, and that was 2016, so that was 8 years ago, and it's been steadily increasing. But again, you have to look at what it was based on. And at the time it was adopted, there were concerns about the size of the laundry list of projects.
Well, that's an interesting laundry list of projects. 42 traffic lights and all these connector roads. Yeah.
So what do we do?
So is there a possibility to table this and have you come back with some solutions to how we could pursue, or what it's needed or necessary to pursue a rate study or moving forward?
So, rate study moving forward will not make these go away. Tomorrow, we will be charging this amount based upon adopted fees. We're only asking if you want to increase the fees tonight based on the standard that was set. Do you want a cost of living increase?
I don't think
Do you want a
the direction of our
resolution?
council is that we don't want to raise the fees.
And
So I think what I'm asking is, should we potentially table this for a future date to see what our options are as to how we could go about clarifying this and
And to possibly look at
correcting.
that resolution that put this in place
Sure.
to begin with.
Amy?
there are approximately 12 resolutions which put individual ones of these in place. It wasn't a resolution. So there's lots and lots of resolutions.
Right.
That were
I thought you
adopted.
said that there was one in 2000.
2019 is when we
So
adopted the fact that we would raise it
then
annually.
let's look at
It didn't
2019.
establish the fee itself.
It just established, it
If I
just
remember-
established the increase.
If I remember right, I'm stepping back in the Wayback Machine. Things had not been updated in like the building permits since like 1998. I'm just throwing out a date. I'm just saying,
No,
they
I
were
remember business
way back.
licenses and all that
And
stuff,
business
too.
license, and so business licenses.
But-
But I think we updated these, and then we didn't, I'm remembering that. We threw something in there, what it was, I don't remember, so we could come up yearly, so we didn't fall behind. I mean, we weren't even covering staff time at that point. So, I'm trying to remember, and I think it was that we put in there that it would come up by the CIP or something to at least keep up with an inflation factor of that we're at least covering staff time to do these things. Now,
But now we've got.
I don't remember, I mean, the CIP water and sewer, I kind of remember going over that with, who?
Dave would have been involved.
Yeah, but all these ones, I think, I'm
So,
foggy on it.
Let me be clear that what you are seeing there is not the fee schedule. The fee schedule has things like business licenses on it. It has everything.
Right.
So I just wanted, so that you know when you're asking, it's for all fees.
I think what I'm asking, and I'm not opposed, I don't want us to get in a situation, it's same with water, right? Where we're not collecting and then we're way in the hole.
Right.
But I would like to look at that resolution to see what it says in terms of is it like up to a certain percent?
That's
Is
what
it,
I was asking.
because if we're just doing 10% every year without really looking at it, and we're only having 4 houses built, then we're sitting here raising rates for what?
Yeah.
And we're pushing people away. So that's what I'm saying when I'd like to relook at that resolution to see what that language states in terms of if we have the flexibility to raise it up to a certain amount or if we have to. You always look like you're being scolded. I'm just throwing this out there. You're just looking down.
I'm making sure that we can follow what you need us to do.
I just want to, like I said, just look at it and better
Yeah,
understand.
because I can tell you right now what it says, and I'm thinking I'm jumping ahead to, you will need to see it come back to you so that language could be adjusted, because right now it does not include that.
So until we adjust it, it stays what the current rates are, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I think that's what we're,
That's the
that's
direction
what
we
we're
like.
asking.
I've
So
opened
I
public comment, I've closed public comment, and I
Are
think
you good with that?
Yeah, so I'm just saying we
Bring it back.
leave rates where they're at and come back with direction of looking to try and
Maybe.
lower these fees or
Yeah, and
or
maybe
some
you
way
can do a little
to-
bit more investigation on the county, where they're at with their fees. If you pulled this off a website or something, I don't know.
This is out there housing element.
Okay.
So do you want it just on building fees, or do you want it on the many fees?
I mean, like the plumbing permit and the gas line one, those aren't very big. I feel like building a home is that's a big
Right.
ticket item. I looked at all the other ones, like for business permits,
license,
licenses,
yeah.
no, not
Right.
really, that's
I think
fine.
that's-
But these are big ticket
I
items,
think-
and
I
when you're
think
doing
this one-
10% on, $11,000, that's a hike.
all of your attachments here with our packet information, these have all been increased. I don't think you know my question yet until you, these have all been increased by 9% already, or what we're looking at, or
I'm deferring.
these are our current rates as they stand?
No, this what you're presented includes the increase,
Okay,
but remember that the items that are for police, fire, public works, administration were only increased 3.2% based on the CPI.
Right. Not all of
The
them. no.
building,
No, no,
Right.
no.
The engineering, roads, planning, building that were based on the 9.4.
Okay, so what is it we're wanting to bring back? Just the building side that was 9.4, everything at the 3.2 is okay?
Yeah, that one was fine.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the clarification you need, Amy?
So
It's actually Michelle's item, sorry.
So I will make it.
Okay.
So do you want me to make a mo, here, how about this? Let me run this back. A motion for everything that was the 3 point, help me, 2 is okay. We want to revisit the 9%,
9.4.
9.4%.
Which are the
Also
building
look at, what table was this?
Updating that, yeah.
She created that for tonight only.
Okay, also look at this
Complete comparison.
Building.
comparison building permit. Trying to lower that. Do I need to include that in what I'm saying or not? Or just,
Yeah, it's
okay.
And did you want to give direction to look at what it costs for a new traffic study?
Yes.
this week?
Oof,
I think
sure.
that, I think, well, I'm not taking your.
Oh, no, go for it. No,
but
that's fine.
I
I'm
think what
looking
I
at-
would like is, in order to improve this resolution increase, we would have to consider a new rate study, and what would that entail? Does that entail a whole new consultant and what the cost of a consultant, or is there a mini consultant, or is there an internal effort we can do, or whatever?
And you wanted the resolution.
And then the resolution to see what that verbiage states.
Look at the resolution that adopted or created this monstrosity.
If we have to increase it the full 9%.
Just to know what the
Right.
verbiage states in terms of the increases.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to increase to 3% and not the 9 tonight.
Uh-huh.
And then direction to staff with, is that?
I got you.
Okay.
Who's second?
Second.
Thank you. So Shemente?
I just have one, well, we have to discuss, I just have one question. So Steve, do you see when we have an in-house building inspector that building permit fee could be lowered because of not having a consultant? That was my only question that you guys could look at.
I don't.
Okay.
Because I think that is based on the proposed square footage of the new construction.
So there's an evaluation, so that,
Based on the
nothing,
cost of the
if we have an
house.
in-house person, that's just, that fee is based on the cost percent of the house then.
The only caveat is that building permit fee includes a plan check and building permit fee. And we
Right.
currently do plan checks outside of the office.
Right.
Is there a slight chance that a few $100s could be saved by having them done in-house meals?
Okay.
Do you want me to email you this so you have it? Just so you have
Right.
it?
He seconded.
Yeah.
I know,
I
but I'm
said
just
First,
saying
second.
that.
So,
Semente's
Rose,
Aye.
Imbroglio.
Aye.
Moncada.
Aye.
Hernan.
Aye.
Sharada.
Aye.
Do you want me to email you this just so you have it as,
no, I think it needs to be updated because
Okay.
the numbers are, I think.
I was thinking
stale.
so you can compare when.
No, I don't like
Would I
that.
divide the
Okay.
the
Moving
total
on.
numbers by the square footage that was presented? We're at
Yeah.
24, 25 square foot.
I've
Calaveras
only
County's
had
at
2 pieces of
21.
meat today.
Okay, we are gonna move on because we still have
Hungry.
many items, so we're gonna get going here, guys. City Council monthly updates, Steve.
Okay, thank you very much. Those if you can bring that up. The
What you want.
City
right?
Council monthly update, I'm gonna change the format of the first page a little bit because you already have a calendar that Rose goes over with you, so instead of taking up almost a full page of the first one for a calendar that you have elsewhere, I changed it so that
It's fine, just.
We're good.
roll.
Keep
rolling. We have it.
Roll with it.
Everything's
I
good.
changed it so that the first page shows the significant ongoing projects, and then I want to do kind of an ongoing monthly significant accomplishments that will change, that will add to every month. So for example, in September, we got the environmental review completed for the Angels Creek Trail. We did the groundbreaking for Eureka Oaks. We got the playground installed and inspected at Utica. And we completed the Booster Way sewer update. So this will be added to every month of the significant projects that are completed. And then on page 3, I would just like to point out under water, wastewater, and public works, on the looking ahead section. Go down one more page, Rose. And, yep, keep going, right there. So we are going out for bids on the automated meter reader project. I know that's of interest to council, so that's in the works right now. We are also getting bids on speed tables and chip sealing. We have the crack sealing equipment that will be done by staff. So it's kind of a 3-for-1. It's the speed tables and chip sealing by a contractor, and then the crack sealing by our staff. But all those 3 things will be coordinated into one effort. We're going to start the pressure relief valve project, and then got a couple questions about the frog plaque installation that kind of stalled for whatever reason. It's back on track. That will get done, and so we're on that again. So that's it for my monthly update. Any questions about the handout?
No.
If not, I have a couple other things.
Okay.
We have a space needs assessment special workshop on October 23rd at 2 p.m. I want to know, we will have myself and all the department heads here. Do you want the contractors to be here? Like the contracted city engineer, the code enforcement person, the planning person, or do you just want department heads?
What do you think?
I would like us just to be able to brainstorm with department heads about what we envision. But what we currently have, I know you went and looked at the old city hall. I would personally just like to have a conversation about what we envision the city to look like and with our current spaces. And what
And
could
you
we
said
do?
with department heads?
With department heads.
So we want everybody here from each department?
Right.
Okay.
So that they can have.
So the real question is, so
No.
I'm throwing you in.
Yeah.
Well, I'm saying not based on your motion.
So planning
No, and Amy.
and code enforcement and engineering, they are their own departments. We just don't have a department head for that. And if we're talking immediate needs, like within 1 to 5 years, maybe not include them. But if we're talking like a 30-year projection, those departments might need to be represented in this meeting. So I just don't know what you envision. Are you looking more for a shorter to medium range term planning project or a long-term planning?
I'd like us to look at each of the spaces, i.e. the firehouse. What could we do long-term? Look at where police are housed. Could we combine police and fire? And, having them here, we had a set of plans that was a Taj Mahal, but could we do something? What are we gonna do with our old city hall? I want, that's what I envision.
So, yeah. And
I think that based on that, I think it's gonna get so far in the weeds, I don't think we should have staff here. I think that we're not there yet. I think we need to have a high level, what the 5 of us think and what you guys think as a perception, and then put it into action with staff and with their needs and their wants and their desires. But I think it's gonna be just we're gonna get into the woods if we have everybody here for this first round of meeting. I don't even think we all know what everybody's concept is or what everybody's ideas
Or what,
are.
what properties we're gonna bring in, is the
Right.
Sam Choi building, is the post office,
Right.
is Pickle Porch, we have a lot of property. What are we assessing also?
Yeah, I think before we could already get way too out of the weeds with too many people, so I'd rather just be a smaller group.
Yeah.
So no department heads either then?
I think that department
Not this
heads are
round.
probably, really
Okay.
busy, and I
Good.
wouldn't want to take time from them when
We don't even
they're already kind of spread thin.
So by department head, you're talking like,
I'm talking
Like
the
Chris.
police chief, the fire chief, Chris, Rose, Michelle,
And I
those are
think
department heads.
in terms of consultants for me, it's possible to say that in 2 years a consultant's contract is up and we're not even working with them, so I would rather not have them here.
Yeah.
That's
sorry,
just my.
I'm good with I'm good with consultants not being here, but I think, I don't even know how many vehicles Chris has. I'm just throwing out, there's things that I don't know, that I don't know I don't even know how many vehicles are around here per se. So there's questions and things that I would want answered.
How long do we have this?
By
hour and a
department
half?
heads.
So maybe we need an hour of just us to talk
And-
about
and-
this and then bring them in.
Yeah, and I'm gonna throw Amy out there. Amy's been around the longest out of all of us here and knows a hell of a lot of information. So that can be answered that I don't know. So there's
I just
just a
think that
lot
we
of.
need to hammer down each of our visions before we start asking everybody else what their wishes are. There's gonna be a lot going on. We have to kind of.
Yeah.
City council people come and go,
Right.
Those guys are gonna be here forever, so, you know, and I think we need to become more inclusive and not exclusive, however you guys wanna do it. I don't think we're gonna solve the world's problems on that day.
No.
I just think we need to start brainstorming, what are we gonna do? We have a fire engine sitting outside,
But
Well, I mean, yeah, too.
2 fire engines sitting outside.
I think our direction is so broad right now, and considering the time of year, we could all change too, right? So, like, we could
So,
say the
that's a
same
good
thing
point,
about
and I
everything.
appreciate that. So this is happening because I brought up at the last council meeting that I've heard from a couple
Yeah,
of you.
many times.
Space needs assessment, master's facility plan, maybe we don't do any of it. Maybe we wait until the new council and the new city manager, and this is something you take on next year, and we cancel this whole thing for now. I just didn't want you guys to, I didn't want to have this on my plate and not deliver something to you if
It's
you want
come up a
something
lot.
delivered before I left.
Right.
But this might be too big of a project.
I'm
to
okay
take
with
on
that.
right
What
now.
I'm not okay with is the old city hall sitting through another
Sitting
winter.
vacant.
It needs,
Yeah.
Yeah, it needs to be addressed in some way before
So
winter.
then
And I
maybe
think
make this
that's,
a city hall specific meeting,
We
right?
can just do that in.
or why don't we do
I
that
have
on the
5
next
minutes.
agenda?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you
Agenda.
went and looked at it.
I did.
Maybe we agendize that for the next meeting in October
an
and
update
we
and-
don't have the space needs until next year.
Yeah.
I'm
It's
fine
fine
with
by
that.
me. I
I
just
think
don't
every
want
time we
I don't
have
want
this
to kick the
discussion,
can.
well, every time we have this discussion too, it's
Anymore.
longer than just this, so it's obvious that it needs to happen.
Right.
It's just the question of, we still don't really know how broad the conversation is, right? And I
So-
know we won't until we get started in it, but at the same time, there's a lot happening right now as well.
So what I'm hearing is postpone the whole space needs master facility study and agendize on the second meeting in October a discussion specifically about the old city hall.
I think
Is
that's
that what
the
I'm
most
hearing?
important
There you
for
go.
right now.
Okay?
Which is comical, because in that discussion about Old City Hall, it's gonna be like, well, what's gonna happen with City Hall?
Right,
What's it
it's
gonna
all
become?
kind of
So
a-
it's gonna come back around about
Yeah.
10 more times, but I do think we
But it
need
is,
to
it would be
winterize
the
it
opportunity
properly.
to immediately, or in the short term, address it all.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm good with that. Are you guys good with that?
Got it?
Fine.
So we are canceling the 23rd, correct?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's why you didn't put it on the calendar. Exactly, you knew
I'm
that.
deleting it out of my calendar right now.
All right, next thing I have is, I think we got an email today saying October 2nd, the COG meeting has been canceled. So for those that need to know that, the next meeting is November 6th. We have the homecoming parade this Friday, 2 to 3. We also have the final farmers market this Friday. We already talked about the Wild West Fest on October 12th.
We have something on that, on the Wild West Fest.
We do, yes. So Wild West Fest on October 12th, 10 to 3. And then we also received a request from Sandy Hagel. It was too late to get on the agenda because we got this on Friday and the agenda goes out on Friday, so it's too late. It was too late to get something on the agenda for a resolution. But she's asking for some type of recognition from the city because
Yeah.
CES, California Electric Steel, being in business for 170 years. It is the longest continual running steel foundry west of the Mississippi. At high noon, they will be recognizing the owners, and they would like to know if we would be interested in some type of certificate of acknowledgement recognizing this business. They're going to have representatives from the state and the Senate and the Assembly. So we can't do a resolution because this was our opportunity to do it and the agenda already went out. So do we want to do something like similar to what we did for the Eagle Scout, where there was a letter written on behalf of City Council that's signed by the mayor, or create some type of certificate that says Angels Camp and something, just some document to be presented from the city at this event at noon.
Yeah, I can attend on that, I'm sure, I mean, all of us should try to be there, but I can present it as we've been asked, but I just didn't know what the document should be.
So I just kind of open it up to ideas of a letter, a certificate that's generated in some way recognizing this. Any other ideas?
I think the Eagle Scout thing is fine.
Yeah,
You can write a letter and I give direction for Jen to sign it.
And then can we I guess if we wanted to do a resolution, we could do it the 15th and just
We
let them
could.
know
Just let
that.
them
Follow
know.
up.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're still doing a resolution, it's just.
And just
unfortunately
include that in the
after
letter.
Yeah.
Because we will-
During the meeting.
There will
on
be
the
a
15th.
resolution in the,
Right,
that. October 15th,
yeah, right.
if everyone's okay with that.
I'm fine with that.
Perfect.
Last thing I have is if you will bring up that PDF that I asked you to do. Okay, so
Downtown
this
parking lot.
is our city engineer's rendering of the blank space on the south end is the pickled porch and the parking lot of the pickled porch. The space with the whatever color that is, red or pink or something, and then orange
Mhm.
is the newly purchased lot. So I asked the city engineer to come up with some type of parking plan for that new lot. He's designated, can I have the mouse? He's designated, whoops, what happened?
Here we are.
For full screen.
No, we close, go to the PDF at the bottom, there
This
you
one?
go, and then there you go.
All right, so he's designated this as a no parking zone. This is a travel only zone. He's suggesting that people pull in from here. There are 10 parking spaces designated here, and then they exit this way.
Ooh,
And I said,
ooh.
did we buy the lot with the intent of creating 10 additional parking spaces
No.
for downtown? And so he's coming up with a couple of different options. But as it sits right now, without much need for significant effort from the city or cost from the city or additional work from the engineer, this is what could be done almost immediately. Within a month, we could have this lined out, 10 parking spaces, and that's that.
I don't
So
think that.
there is another option is to, there's an entrance way up here and there's an entrance way up here. In order to do this, we have to have an encroachment permit by Caltrans that would require us to improve both of these driveways, because the way they are right now you can't do it.
Thank you.
One of the options is, instead of improving this driveway and improving this driveway, create a new driveway right in the middle that allows cars to park on this side and on this side. That would allow for about 20 parking spaces instead of about 10. So before we move forward with anything, I just kind of wanted to get a feel from council. When this lot was purchased for the purpose of parking, was there any intent? Not intent, was there any expectation as to the number of parking spaces that would be included? Because 10 is what he says we can do as it sits right now.
I don't think 10 was our vision,
No.
not me personally.
And Greta got people to start parking perpendicular to that divider, so we're putting more people in there. And I don't agree with coming and making that one way going through that. I mean, I think the flow of traffic now works. And my only concern always was with, there is an exit up here, but if you have a truck parked here, you can't get out of that
Right.
parking lot. And that was kind of my only thought about looking at it.
And if there's a vehicle parked on the street here,
You can't.
you can't see to get out.
Right.
So it needs improvement, and there needs to, but 10 is not the number.
No.
And this no parking
No.
is not realistic,
No.
because that's where the trees are and that's where the shade is, and that fills up first. And I think that the flow of traffic should be going the opposite direction. But
So the
I'm
city
not-
engineer is coming up with other alternatives
Yeah.
to this 10 parking space layout that you have in front of you today. So I guess my question is, do you want, because this wouldn't require much work, do you want us just to get something out there and go with this 10 parking space
No,
idea
'cause
and wait
once
for
you
him to
start-
develop
Nope.
something? Or do you want to leave it as it
Yeah,
is
leave it as it is.
and let him come up with something else that's going to cost money? So it's going to, we're talking about time and money. And until we get time and money, it's going to stay the way it is.
Yeah, and I don't even see spending a lot of money on it until we actually identify the other level where the the swaddles are right now, there's a whole nother level of what we own that's up higher. That's not all the property, doesn't, yeah, it goes up there.
Right there, right.
So when we want to spend money, we need to incorporate the entire lot that we bought.
I just wanted to just give you an update,
Yeah.
let you know this is the
Perfect.
option that we have right now, and make sure you're not interested in this.
No,
Thank you.
Okay.
Are we interested in, maybe we don't need to spend any more money either. I mean,
Right.
I mean, it's working except if somebody parks their car there. And so do we just X out that one area? You know, and so.
You have to be
someone-
Caltrans
We
to
got a
say yay or nay.
Pardon?
You have to be Caltrans to say yay or nay.
No, I'm talking about in our parking lot.
I thought you were talking about like.
No, I'm just talking about if we just said, you know, just did something there that said no parking so people could get out of the
Put a
lot.
trash can there.
You know,
Okay, so we're gonna bring back options, right?
We are.
Thank you. Quickly, we have council report. Oh, yeah.
I have not.
That's not where we go.
Before I forget.
I didn't go to Utica. So.
I did, I got it, there we go.
Is
I
there-
have nothing.
Okay, Alvin, you're up.
I got nothing.
I went to Utica,
Thank you.
Mike Emmenhauser, I think is how you say his last name. He's been there 10 years, so they had a little appreciation for him, and I've known him for.
Did he retire?
No,
No.
just been there 10 years.
Oh.
I've known him for almost 20. He's a good guy. We worked at General Supply. He worked for SPI before that, and then we also picked up 2 new water customers. I think the Moores and Tanners. So one was above Murphy, so they're paying more, and the other one was below. But either way, we picked up 2 new water customers, which was great. We did a CPA firm for the audit. We went with Hawks. Out of Sonora. They're a new firm that we're going to try out because they recommend kind of alternating it up every now and then. So we went with Hawks and see how it works out. And then we had a discussion on FERC. Everything's looking pretty good, up to date. I'm trying to think. Oh, Gary and Jen have been keeping Stantec, which is their main firm, honest and saying, well, we'll go out to bid then if you don't give us a little bit of pricing. So they've been doing good on that. Outage in November. According to Joel, the communication between Utica and Angels is the best it's ever been. At least he feels that way. Talked to Chris the other day, said it was really good. And I don't know what else we were doing.
I think you hit it all.
That's what I got from my notes.
Okay,
They had
Mr.
that other
Chimente. Oh, what's that?
They had that other water meeting.
yeah, go
Two
talk
by two
about
by
the
two.
other
Yeah,
water meeting.
okay, all right.
Because you're on a roll.
The 2x2 meeting with Murphy's, CCWD, Angels, and Utica. There wasn't, in my opinion, a whole lot of substance to it. It was kind of just talk and see how everybody's feeling about it. There would have been no Brown Act violation at all while we were there. I do think some of the stuff that we talked about, like what's going to happen with water in the future, is big and it will come under scrutiny. And I think we need to be united on that. But I don't know. I'm still interested in going and checking it out, but there needs to be more to it, in my opinion, than what it was. So if we want to do a joint meeting yearly for people that get on and off boards and move around, I think that's a great idea to meet and know who's on there. And we'll see if there's one more meeting, I'd love to go to it, and maybe there'll be more to it.
What do you mean when you say it was, you just said something very vague.
We had lunch, everybody kind of sat around and we talked about, there was no agendized meeting. We just kind of talked about
Important stuff.
some important stuff.
So it was more like a discussion, kind of?
It was an open discussion between board
Like a
members.
fireside chat?
Yes, that's pretty much what it was.
Which was interesting, because I thought it was posed as the managers were talking and you were like observing.
Yeah, that's what
Michael kind of talked about, and they have a FERC case coming up. We're in the middle of it. They talked about their negotiations with NCPA. Talked about the water rights and how they were formed.
Can I ask
With
a
CCWD.
question, Tom? Can they technically go to this meeting if it's not
Depends.
a true committee?
Depends.
And so it was.
It's not agendized.
Yeah, it was. There was no agendized
As long
anything
as
to
they
it.
didn't
Break the ground.
Okay.
talk about.
Right, and there was nothing, and there was only the 2 of us, and I don't think there was any third party there from anybody that was there, but.
Oh, you mean any third party?
There could be.
Any third person, right, from the
Right.
city or that made Utica, there was no I think we were fine on that.
As long as, if Gary was there, as long as there wasn't two people from
Actually, but even then, there was no direction given. There was no, it was just an open forum to talk. There was nothing agendized, there was no decisions made, so I don't know, Tom, if there was a Brown, if there would be a Brown Act violation.
It's touchy.
Right, it's touchy, but, so,
It was Eric and Tom.
I don't know, and it was good to talk to Eric and see faces of everybody.
Tom wasn't there.
Tom wasn't there.
Oh, I thought it was supposed to be Eric and Tom.
No, it was Eric and.
And,
Greg?
Greg, it was Rasmussen.
So then it would have been, but yeah.
So, and there was just some open discussion is all it was. So, like I'm saying, I don't want to be left out of any sort of thing that gets popped up, but I want some more substance to it also. But if we want to all meet and see faces, my recommendation would be that we all meet once a year as a JPA and we have a mixer. And that's what it would be like, so.
Wasn't that direction from the JPA?
That's what I brought.
I don't know, what do you got on it?
I agree with Alvin. I think it was good for us all to be there. I asked what the direction was gonna be, you know, they didn't feel like there was a lot of substance, and the response was, well, you know, the managers are gonna do all of that stuff. So I was a little disappointed in the level of conversation. Would I go again? Sure, but I would love to be a part of the discussion that's occurring at a different level. And I thought that's what we were going to be doing.
Okay.
So,
let's go.
Seeing no other council reports, we're going to move on to the calendar. Please, Rose.
Steve mentioned that COG is canceled for tomorrow. I did add it on this one, look.
Look at you, girl.
So I will take it off.
And we have all hazards?
All hazards, yes, on the 8th.
And planning commission.
And then I'm just gonna move to November. It's late, we need to get out of here.
Thank
So, we just wanna make sure that we do remember, we're trying to keep the November 5th meeting light. So, and then also the conserved water.
Oh, yes.
Oh, for you,
Outage.
How long is it going to be out?
I was gonna say, what
all
are
of
the dates?
November.
Water's going to be,
All of it?
A month.
Yeah.
November?
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually
There's projects
into,
all throughout.
yeah, it's all
Like December 2nd.
just the first Monday or so of December. So. Okay.
isn't it water in storage to last a month?
No,
We have about 30 days in Ross.
but it can, and it'll come in and out too.
Oh, like are they going to
It's
do any
not-
more shockcrete, or is that what they're doing?
Okay, so we're going to move
Okay.
on to future agenda items. And
I want to know.
anybody have any?
I want to
We can
agendize
talk
that.
about it later. Future agenda items. Anybody?
No.
Steve? Anybody have any to direct? Okay, we are going to go back into closed session. Thank you very much. And